A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Standing at the doorway of a cabin on Cashier Creek. Up on the ridge, the bloodhounds have caught your scent. And between you and a fortune, between you and escape, yawn the white jaws of a deadly cottonmouth.
Escape. Produced and directed by William N. Robeson and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the worn-out acres of a poor white trash farmer somewhere in the southern mountains. In Irvin S. Cobb's great tale of vengeance, Snake Doctor.
This story is about snakes and two men. One man was afraid of snakes and the other wasn't. The one who wasn't was known along Cashier Creek as Snake Doctor. His cabin was near the creek bottomland where there's a powerful lot of cottonmouths. And he earned his meager living by rendering down their soft fat, bottling the oil, and selling it. For everyone knew there was no remedy for rheumatism like snake oil. Snake Doctor was harmless enough, but there were folks who honestly believed that he was a colleague of Beelzebub just because he wasn't afraid of snakes. And that's not all they believed about him. The man who was afraid of snakes was Jace Morner, who was Snake Doctor's nearest neighbor. Jace was the kind of man we all know who suspected, feared, and hated anything he didn't understand. And he understood neither cottonmouths nor the Snake Doctor. In short, Jace was ornery, ignorant, and shiftless. He'd rather shoot squirrels and chop cotton. He'd rather fish than hoe corn. And that's just what he's doing now, fishing down the big hole with his son and heir, Finney, who's old enough, but not quite bright enough to handle a gun.
Missed him, doggy!
Finney, you blind fool!
Just in the creek.
What?
The cottonmouth. Tramp on him in front of you.
Cottonmouth? What? Where the on earth leave?
You got him! You got him. Keep your foot on him while I fetch a stick.
You don't need to, son.
Yeah, he's dead. Now, come here.
How'd you hear anything of that rifle, Pa? I had a bead drawn on him right and I couldn't...
Darn fool.
Pa!
A flame snake whilst I'm fishing.
Heck, you were sunning yourself not more than to there from you. How'd you like to get yourself bit?
Won't be no fish around here till thunderation after all that racket. Well, come on, let's go home and get us some victuals.
Morner tossed his bait can into the creek and threw a stick after it. He stood there watching the stick drift slowly toward the big hole, where the creek widened behind a jam of driftwood. Jake watched as the eddy caught the stick and sucked it beneath the dam. Jake was curious. He moved downstream a rod or two and waited, watching the water boil up from under the driftwood. But the stick didn't come up. That was strange. Must have caught under there in a tangle of water-soaked and sunken logs. Probably it'd stay there in sunken logs. Probably it'd stay there for months. Maybe stay there always. Jake considered this, and an idea began to form in his slow mind as he and Finney started home.
Hey, Pa, how much oil you reckons in this one? Pa? Paul?
What you jawing about, son?
This old cotton man. How much oil?
Slow it down.
So damn, why?
Slow it down, like I say, I'll make you wish.
Paul, I was aiming on rendering the old cottonmouth fat like the snake doctor does. Maybe sell it and make myself some money.
I don't like the squirming things around me.
But it's dead.
Leave it where it drops. Now, come on home.
You scared on cottonmouth, Paul?
I know better than to get myself bit by him.
Get Bailey know the fella got himself bit once. There wasn't a drop of liquor for miles. So he goes to work and cuts open a live chicken and puts it by his leg where the bite was. And fella lived, too.
Yeah.
Reckon Mr. Rides ever gets himself bit, Paul? Handling cottonmouths like he does?
Who?
Mr. Rides.
Who?
Mr. Rides. That's old snake doctor's real name. Ma says I oughtn't to call him snake doctor.
Never mind what your ma says. Ma says. Nobody in my family's calling no snake-loving scum Mr. Rides.
Heck, that's what I say.
We'll see what you do.
Sure, Paul. You know, I could have made myself some money rendering that cottonmouth fat down into oil. How much you reckon old snake doctor makes out in the oil he sells?
I don't know.
Tip Bailey says old snake doctor's got more than $1,000 hid away somewhere in his cabin.
More than that, most likely. Cussed old miser don't spend nothing. Ain't got nothing save that old rack-up-bones mare.
Tip Bailey says whenever old snake doctor sets foot out in his place, he's got the granddaddy of all cottonmouths he leaves out in the cabin to stand guard on his money. Tip Bailey says you see old snake doctor put him in his pocket. Live cottonmouth.
Snake doctor ain't fitting to be alive itself.
Oh, Ma says he ain't bad. Says he don't mean nobody harm.
Your ma better be careful who she's associating with.
She says he don't have good sense. Had the fever too much, she says. You ever been in the snake doctor's cabin, Paul?
I don't have nothing more than I have to do with that snake-loving hoodoo.
Tip Bailey says you bet wouldn't be no task at all for some no-good to poke around in the snake doctor's shack and find all the money and make off with it. Oh, this blame done near rendering me down. Look at my head, full of sweat, Paul. Here, look it. See? Done near gourd full of sweat come off me. But why you turn down that way, Paul? It's come on noon. Dinner be most ready.
I'm going to tell snake-loving hoodoo that there's some of them cottonmouths on the creek side of our deadening.
Oh, heck, he knows that.
I'm going to tell him he's got my leave to catch him. You don't need to come along if you don't want it.
Well, if you're going over to his place, I'd kind of like to see it my own self. Go on in, Paul. He ain't to home, else he'd have showed himself by now.
I reckon so.
Can you see any of the snakes?
I told you to keep an eye out for him.
I bet in one of them chinks, Paul. I bet the money's
I
in one
ain't
of
looking for no money. Must be a dang snake itself living in a place like this.
Paul, I know you ain't looking for any money, but if you was, wouldn't you look in that chink right up there?
Where, son?
Right there, second log by the fireplace on the right. You see that there hole?
Yeah. I reckon I would look up there.
Well, since we're here.
Might as well see for myself.
Oh, I wouldn't be a mite surprised if old Snake's out there. Paul.
Huh?
Somebody's out on the porch. It's the snake doctor.
You're looking for something, Chief Mourner?
Yeah, I was looking for you.
What, you?
Yeah. Look here, you old hoodoo. What's the idea of sneaking up on folks who took the trouble to come all the way down here to do you a favor?
Like as not that old snake doctor had a dang moccasin squirting around in his pocket whilst he was talking to you, Paul. Did you mind how his eyes was when he come in? Dang, if it wasn't blazing like when you run across a little rabbit or a cat in the dark. Give me out of 10 years growth, dang if it did. And Did you mind? I kept looking up at the wall where I said I bet he had money between the chinks
Benny.
up it. Huh?
Benny, don't you say nothing to your ma about us being at the snake doctor's place, you understand?
Why should I,
Just
Pa?
don't. And don't you go nigh it again. Cuss old varmint, you'd have thought we was prowlers the way he acted.
Benny, is you out there?
Yeah, Ma. Dinner about ready.
You pull with your gun?
Yeah. Have I time enough for dinner to go down the spring get me some more cold water?
Then if you serve your trunk again.
Hurry it up, son. I'm hungry.
It's anything, Jay.
How you think I can catch fish with Finney firing off my gun at cottonmouths all the time?
Ain't there's heat more than the body can bear?
No.
Ain't cooler but the creek?
No.
Poor old Miss Ride come by here a spell ago. My knife shook to pieces with a chill.
Oh, he come by, did he? Well, did he come in?
Just for a minute.
Just for a minute. What'd he want?
He wanted could have given him something for his ailment. He just about could drag one sour foot before the other. Barely could make it up here from his place. I reckon he must have down bed with the fever by now. I could tell by the touch it was rising in him when he left here and started back home again. I gave him a dose out in our butler's egg had dropped. I would have given him a little smidgen of liquor.
Oh, you would, huh?
Oh, please don't, Jay. Don't want me. Poor old Miss Rice.
Mr. Rice. Mr. Rice. How many times I gotta tell you that the old hoodoo's name is Snake Doctor?
He don't mean nobody no harm.
Him that skin allows for its hide and tallow, and you calling him Mr. Rice. You'll be calling him honey and sugar next. Well, without I learn you...
Please, Jay, please.
Dead names, huh? Tell by the text, could you? Well, I aim to learn. What's his name now? Well, what's your poor Mr. Rive's name now?
Snake Doctor.
Kizzy Mourner rubbed the ugly red welt on her scrawny arm and gave the frying pan full of sizzling side meat a hopeless nudge. She prayed that the weight of the victuals might take the edge off Dave's temper. Finney slouched in from the spring and saw the mark on her arm.
Pa been whomping you again, Ma?
She didn't answer.
What'd you do this time?
She silently dished up the hardback and cornbread for the two men, and while they sat at the table, she ate on her feet, serving them between bites, as was the custom in the Mourner household. After dinner, Finney stretched out under the chinaberry tree, and Kizzy sat on the porch fanning herself and dipping snuff with a peach twig, scouring it back and forth on her gums. Jafe took his ease on the floor of the back room, but he didn't sleep. One thing he'd seen that day, and another thing he'd heard. He was adding them together. That stick that had disappeared under the log jam, and the snake doctor's money. It was 4 o'clock before any of them stirred, and then Jafe spoke to his wife for the first time since noon.
Where's that there vial of drinking liquor, Kizzy?
By the window. You took it out in your pocket after you laid down.
I ought to carry a vial of drinking liquor with me, Ma. I might get bit by an old moccasin as soon as Pa would.
Well, you better not let me catch you. You find it, Jay?
Just remember, I won't be needing to tote no spirits along with me where I'm going.
I wouldn't take no chance, Jay. Just one cottonmouth bite.
Cottonmouths all down the slashes, elk along a creek. Well, I'll be this evening's up on Bailey's Ridge in the high ground.
You fixing to go shooting?
I aim to gun me a chance of young squirrels between now and dusk time.
Reckon I'll come along, Pa.
You're staying here, son.
Oh, dang it. Be steaming in the place when the rain comes down. Pa, you might need needing me.
You stay here.
Oh, Pa.
And Kizzy set me up a snack of cold supper on the shelf. Likely I won't get back till it's plumb dark.
The 8th Marner turned north through his struggling corn rows, and in a minute he was lost from sight. He kept on for nearly a mile until he came to a wild red mulberry tree. Where mulberries are, they're bound to be squirrels. Very neatly, he shot 2 young grays through the head. But Jafe was a master marksman, and unsuspected by any who knew him. Jafe had another quality denied most of his kind. He had an imagination. Today it was in excellent working order. He tied the brain squirrels together and swung them over his shoulder. If needed, they would be his alibi. Then he sat down under a tree a while.
Yeah, I got plenty of time. Don't need to get down to Snake Doctor's place till about dusk when he comes out to feed that swayback mare of his. Mr. Ryan.
He sat out 2 brisk thunder showers and the intervals between them. Then he started off in a wide arc down Bailey's Branch along the skirts of Little Cypress Flats to the sunken flats edging Cashier Creek. Took more than an hour careful traveling before he came to his destination, a screen of haw bushes, less than 50 yards behind the Snake Doctor's cabin.
No matter how ailing he is, he'll get up and come out to feed that rack-of-bones mare. Mr. Ryan. I'll learn him to go colleaguing around another man's woman.
James Marner let his jealousy heat him to a white hatred. At this moment, he was avenging his honor, and thus was spared the embarrassment of admitting to himself that the real reason he was here was the Snake Doctor's money hidden behind the log by the fireplace.
The home-wrecking, snake-loving varmint. 10 minutes and I'll chunk him down the big hole in the creek like I did that stick this morning, and he'll go down and never come out. And nobody will miss him. Nobody will know he's gone for at least a week, maybe a month. Maybe if I get around to it, I might come back this way someday. Poke around that cabin of his.
Jafe Marner's speculations were cut short. The cabin door opened, and a figure stepped out into the growing dusk and walked toward the stable. He saw the Snake Doctor's loppy old straw hat and his dark coat drawn over a pair of hunched, narrow shoulders. At this distance, he couldn't miss. And he didn't. The figure jerked backward and then went face forward. Jafe started for him, and then he stopped. His eyes bugged. His mouth formed a scream that he couldn't utter. His rifle dropped to the ground. He had just killed the Snake Doctor, killed him dead with a .32 caliber slug through the head. And there on his doorsill stood Snake Doctor, whole and sound and staring at him.
Jafe Marner, what you done?
The scream came at last, but Jafe Marner had seen the devil, the Snake Doctor who arose alive from his bullet-riddled body. Jafe whirled and ran into the deep darkening woods, whimpering like a whipped puppy as he tore through the brush. Escape. He must escape. He must get under the shelter of a sound roof, have the protection of 4 walls around him. So he ran and ran for hours. It was close to midnight when he came out on a dirt road a short distance southeast of his deadness. Beyond the next bend, he'd be in sight of home. Then he stopped. Around the bend, coming toward him, was a joggling light, a lantern hanging on a buggy. Jake flattened himself in a clump of brush to hide until the traveler passed. And then, just as the rig was opposite him, he heard a call coming from the other direction.
Hold now, Billy. Mayor Davis Ware. Is that you, Tip Billy?
Yeah. Hoping it out from the junction. Tolerable tired, if anyone should ask you.
What brings you out this time of night, David? Somebody sick?
Heck, nothing. There's been hella popping in these here bottoms tonight. Steady, boy. Steady.
Now, what you mean?
A killing. That's what I mean. A dirty, cold-blooded killing if there ever was one.
Don't say. Who's gotten killed?
I'm a fixing to tell you. It happened just around dusk time at old Snake Doctor's place.
Yeah? Was him was
Now,
killed?
just give me time there.
Yeah.
It seems like Snake Doctor's been a killing lately.
Uh-huh.
Pretty bad off today. Yesterday. And so long about 5 o'clock when the rain was a-lulling a little bit, why, Miss Kitty Moore, you see, she flooded it down from her place to his and fetching some physic with her. And played a hot diddle.
This morning's a mighty sorry one for doing things for folk.
Don't you want to hear this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, seems like she wasn't afeard of the Snake Doctor's place.
Well, I'd have been all over that.
Well, pretty soon after she got there, seems like he tried to get up out of his bed to go feed that old crow-baked nag of his.
Uh-huh.
The rain had started in again, but then just pouring down hard, so she made him stay where he was at, and she put on his old hat and throwed his old coat around her to keep off the worst of the wet, and then she started out the back door to do the feeding herself.
Yeah?
And no more than she got outside and a shot come from the edge of the woods, and down she went with a bullet through her brain.
Killed her.
Dead as a dog.
But who done it?
What, that low-flung husband of hers done it. That's who. He must have followed her down to Snake Doctor's and then just laid in wait for her. Followed her down to Snake Doctor's and then just laid in wait for her.
They certain 'twas him then.
Why, sure thing. Snake Doctor jumped up when he heard the shot, and he catched a quick look at Jape over the fence.
He did.
Yeah, there was a long streak on Kizzy's arm where he must have whooped her at during the day.
Well, hanging's a sight too good for him to catch him.
No, but they will. Some thinks that he's made for the slashes and hid out there. Tracks led off that way.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there'd be a line of men throwed all the way around Little Cypress before sundown.
Sheriff got there yet?
No, but he's due any minute with his pack of dogs. They telephoned in from Gallup Mills that he's on his way. That trail ought to lay good, ground being damp like it is.
So sure.
Old Snake Doctor, he's crying on and raving around up at Mourner's place that the Lord's going to strike the murder down his track. I'm putting my main confidence in them bloodhounds. On them first, and then maybe on the stout plow line and limb betray.
Yeah, it's more certain.
Yeah, I'm just putting out from my place to fetch my oldest boy. I wouldn't want him to miss a Lincoln. This good side crowd up there already.
I'll go up and join him. I got a pistol here in my hip pocket. Poor Miss Mourner. She always was a good-hearted, hard-working woman.
A shot Casey.
Did you hear something just there?
I can't say I did.
Probably a rabbit breaking through the brush.
Listen.
Huh?
Sheriff, they're coming. You can hear them hounds of his, and I got to hurry. Get up there.
I'll see you back to morning.
Why, you sure will.
Jafe didn't have time to waste mourning his dead wife. And he was even a little relieved to know that the Snake Doctor wasn't the devil incarnate. He had a chance against a lynch mob and a pack of bloodhounds. This was the kind of antagonist he could understand and outsmart. Dave's imagination went to work again as he backtracked along the creek bottom in the spotted moonlight.
Gotta throw them dogs off the trail. Gotta wade the creek, even if it is full of cotton now. They must be all around me now. The folks said they don't strike in the water. Well, I hope them folks is right. Gotta get back to the Snake Doctor's. Get his money while he's still up at my place with Kizzy's with me. When we get his money, then the rest will be easy. Make for the deep timber. Cross country's river. Make it by tomorrow's sundown. Hire a shanty boater to ferry me to the Arkansas side. Get a haircut and catch a train for Summer's House. Gotta get Snake Doctor's money first.
Snake Doctor's cabin was dark and empty when Jafe reached it, and he needed light for his search. There were a few dull embers in the fireplace. He threw on some kindling, but it didn't light. Very well, he knew where the chink was. He'd find it in the dark. He scrabbled at the log, sucked some bark in, felt the clay mortar crumble under his fingernails. Here it was, a hole big enough for a man's arm. He plunged his hand into it, touched something slick and smooth, and then something sharp plunged into his thumb. Fire flickered to life. Jake yanked his hand out of the hole, saw two tiny bleeding punctures in his thumb. At the mouth of the hole stretched the wide open jaws of a cottonmouth. It worked fast. He felt the pain leaping from his thumb to his hand, seeping up his arm. He only had some liquor. He had a fresh killed chicken to slap on the wound. He had nothing. Then a sharp, horrible pain wrenched his heart, and a second. And there in the firelight, the huge cottonmouth poised in its crevice. Jace leaped out of the shack and started blindly for the timber, staggered, stumbled, and pitched forward on his face. His open mouth full of weeds and muddy grass stems. The cramping fingers of his outstretched right hand almost touching a reddish-black smear on the wet, trampled grass.
Good-ridden, pot gravy, that's good riddance. I'd call it that, wouldn't you, Dr. Bradshaw?
Well, I reckon there's sort of a rough justice in the way he died. Look, his hand reaching out. Just about touches the blood where his woman fell. This has been quite a night, Davis. I've just examined the body of a man who appears to have been killed by snake bite. Killed good and quick, too, judging by the evidence.
Well, Doc, ain't that the way a cottonmouth always does kill a man sudden like? I always heard tell that...
Never mind what you heard. I'm going by the facts. I've been practicing medicine in this county for going on to 46 years. And I tell you that in all my life, I've never known but 2 or 3 people actually being bitten by water moccasins. And until tonight, I never had the personal knowledge of anybody dying from a bite of any kind of a snake.
Well, is that a fact? Hey, what's going on over there, Doc?
That Mourner's boy kicking up the fuss?
Yeah, he's a no good just like his foe.
What's your trouble, Tip?
I'm going to kill a snake and bitten my paw. Then I'm going to give that old snake doctor a whooping for keeping a reptile in this place.
Your paw got just what was his due, Fanny. Snake doctor ain't to blame none.
He's a hoodoo devil.
Look here, boy. Mr. Rives promised all his savings, nearly $100 to pay for burying your ma decent. That's how much he thought of her. Now go on home, behave yourself.
Yeah, go on, Fanny. Ain't no
Somebody ought to kill that reptile. It's my paw, and I'm going to do it.
Hey, Doc, just a minute ago you started to say something about snake bite not killing. How do you account for Jafe here?
Well, the late Jafe Mourner had a rotten, bad heart, Davis.
Oh, he sure did. Yes, it proves that.
I don't mean in that sense. I mean there was an organic weakness. A curious thing, though, there was no swelling anywhere.
Well, there's them 2 marks on his thumb. Them snake gashes like some I've seen.
Now, that explains how... What's...
Hey, it's City Morning. He's in the cab.
Old kid, come on, Doc. He's probably shot somebody.
I shot at it, but I didn't hit it. He's going to get me like he got my paw.
Come on, Doc, come on. He said he shot at something in the cabin.
I don't see anything.
Oh, Finney's had enough happen to him yesterday to upset even a bright boy. So we can... Oh, there it is.
What?
That cottonmouth up there in the hole of that log.
Oh, that. The snake doctor told me about that varmint. Look at him closer, David.
Oh, no, sir, not
Go ahead. It's just a stuffed snake.
Stuff?
Yes. Snake doctor believes in precautions. Because that hole's where he hides his money. That snake could scare anybody away who didn't know it was stuffed. But just to be sure, old snake doctor lined the hole with coils of barbed wire.
I see. You think that them marks on Jay's thumb was got off of the barbed wire, huh?
That could be. Lot stronger hearts than Jafe Mourner's would have stopped beating at a scare like that.
Well, I'll be sweet. Old snake doctor's a cute one, ain't he?
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, has brought you Snake Doctor by Irvin S. Cobb, adapted for radio by Fred Howard, who also played Doc Bradshaw. With Bill Conrad as Jace, Paul Frees as Finney, Ruth Parrott as Kizzy. Martin Yarborough played Davis, Louis Van Ruten played Snake Doctor and Tip Bailey. The original musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Pure. Next week...
You are alone in a remote old world village inhabited by cat people. And you are desired by a beautiful cat girl who wants your soul.
Next week, we escape with Algernon Blackwood's eerie story titled Ancient Sorcerers. Good night then until the same time next week when we again offer you Escape.
Fed up with shoveling snow? Can't shake that cold of yours? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
You were alone in a remote village on the Welsh border, surrounded by silent townspeople who were watching and waiting for you to decide to lose your soul.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Today we escape to a remote section of Wales and a strange village between two worlds, as Algernon Blackwood described it in his eerie story, Ancient Sorceries.
I had spent a week's vacation in Wales and was returning to London by train when it all began. It was late afternoon. We'd left the Welsh mountains and crossed the border into western England, passing through a countryside which appeared singularly empty, deserted of life. Over the soft hills and the valleys between hung a faintly perceptible haze, giving to the whole landscape a feeling of enchantment and unreality. The train slowed at length to stop at a tiny wayside station. As it did so, a sudden thought occurred to me. Why not leave the crowded train with its irritating noises and spend the night in this peaceful spot, then take a slower and emptier train in the morning? On the impulse, I rose from my seat, and the man sitting opposite me said,
Why, say, sir, we only stopped here for a minute or two. If you were thinking of walking about a bit.
No, matter of fact, I'm getting off here.
I thought you were going to London.
I'll go on in the morning. I'm going to stay here for the night.
I strongly advise you not to.
I beg your pardon?
This is the village of Malton.
Malton? I've never heard of it.
Few people have, outside. But if you place any value on your soul, you'll not spend the night here.
What are you talking about? Why not?
Because of the sleep. And because of the cats. That's all I can tell you.
You're insane. I'll take my bag now, if you don't mind.
You're making a terrible mistake. You may not even get the chance to regret it. Don't leave this train. I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, what utter nonsense.
Don't, I tell you.
Goodbye. I stood there on the embankment as the train pulled away. What was the matter with the man, anyway? Cats, sleep. His words made no sense. I picked up my bag and started walking up the long hill toward the village, and suddenly, for no reason at all, I shivered. Hello? Hello, is anyone here?
Yes?
Oh, I didn't see you at first.
Is there something I can do for you, sir?
Why, yes, I saw your sign outside the Inn of the Golden Bough. I should like to get a room.
You're planning to stay here?
Why, yes.
Very well. You may sign the register. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to catch another train and go on in the morning.
Yes, of course.
There we are.
Arthur Llewellyn. Llewellyn?
Yes, from London.
Arthur Llewellyn. You've been a long time coming back.
What?
But now that you're here, you'll find there are some things that never change.
Madam, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
You rang, madam?
Don't worry. The gentleman would like a room for the night. His name is Arthur Llewellyn.
Aye, so it is. Welcome back to Malton, sir.
I knew I'd never been here before. What was it all about? First the men on the train, and now these people. Were they crazy, or was I? Oh, well, I left the inn and walked along narrow cobbled streets, beneath quaint gables leaning out from the silent, shuttered houses, through dappled pools of light and shadow. As I walked, it gradually dawned upon me that the village of Malton was centuries old, older than any town in England ought to be. And the people I passed now and then were dressed in the fashion of another day. They paid no attention to me, went silently about their own business. Yes, that was it. That's what I'd been noticing. Silently. As I walked, I noticed they came and went with only soft padding sounds to mark their passing, as though they walked in shoes with soles of velvet. When I stopped, there was no sound. The silence was unbroken. I hurried through the streets and came at last to the far side of the village, to a place where the hill broke away sharply from a low, flat wall of stone, perhaps a rampart once. I sat down upon it, and the dreamy tranquility of the place stole over me. Presently, I don't know how much later, I became aware of the sound of weird music rising out of the vale below me. I looked down from the rampart. The sunken plain at the bottom melted away into a sea of gathering shadow, blurred into a swirl of thickening mist. I thought of dead trees swept by the night wind, of animals with half-human voices singing to a white moon, of the wailing of cats on the roof tiles at night, of unearthly creatures far off in the sky calling to one another in chorus. I felt my heart beat faster and faster, felt the vague stirrings of some urge inside of me trying to answer the awful call of that music. I fought against the feeling, fought against myself. And even as I did, I found I was staring down into that valley, peering desperately into the dark mist, trying to see I don't know what. And then suddenly, the music ended. I stood on the rampart alone, dusk fallen about me, and the early night wind moaned with a chill breath. Quick terror rose up in me. I turned and ran on through the darkened streets, ran with heart pounding, dodging at shadows, through one dim alley after another, and arrived at last panting and almost breathless at the door of the Golden Bough.
You've been a long time returning, Mr. Llewellyn. It's past 7.
Yes, I guess I walked farther than I meant to. I didn't realize it was so late.
You heard the music, didn't you?
Yes. Yes, the strangest music I've ever heard. How did you know? Who plays it, anyway?
Then you didn't remember it?
No. Why should I? The thing was becoming irritating, this quiet insistence that I was someone else. I went into my lonely dinner and ate as quickly as possible. Then, taking the candle Dundreary gave me, I crossed the lobby, climbed the stairs behind the desk, and walked past silent doors down the long, empty hall that led to my room at the end. I was halfway to my door when suddenly the flame of my candle went out. I stood stock still in the pitch blackness, fumbling for a match. And at that moment I knew that someone or something was there with me in the darkness. I held my breath and listened. There was no sound, no movement. I reached out and found the wall and moved along, feeling my way in the inky blackness. It was then I touched it. Near my face, another soft, warm yielding. And alive. Who is it?
It is I, Ilse.
Who?
Ilse. Don't you remember me, Arthur?
No.
But wouldn't you like to remember me? Don't you want to see me again? To look at me? Now?
I don't know.
But not tonight, Arthur. Perhaps tomorrow. Tomorrow.
I stumbled blindly through the door of my room and shut it behind me. I lit the candle and flung myself across the bed. The room was small, with one shuttered window, and the light of the flame flickered on the walls and ceiling. I stared at the hand that had touched her out there in the dark hall. I lifted it to my face and smelled the barbaric scent that still clung to my fingers. It was evil and maddening. The candle sputtered and burned, and the melted minutes dripped away. Who was I? Who were these people? Who was Ilse? I fell asleep finally, and dreamed of soft moving creatures and the silence of life in a dim, muffled world devoid of all feeling but ecstasy. And I dreamed, too, of cats.
You've slept quite late this morning, Mr. Llewellyn.
Morning, Dundry. I felt as though I'd been drugged.
The night air here in Malton is very conducive to sleep.
I'd meant to catch the morning train to London. Now it's too late.
What a terrible shame.
Yes. Oh, by the way, Dundry.
Yes, Mr. Llewellyn?
Do you... I mean, I was wondering if you'd know anyone by the name of Ilse.
Ilse happens to be my daughter, Mr. Llewellyn.
Oh, I didn't hear you come in.
I hope you were able to sleep well, without unpleasant dreams.
I guess so.
I'm so happy to hear it. Perhaps then you may decide to stay with us for a long time.
That's very kind of you.
No, it's not kindness, Mr. Llewellyn. But all of us are hoping that you may decide soon.
Decide? Decide what? It was no use. None of them would answer my questions. They seemed to think I should know already. I left the inn as soon as I'd eaten, walked around the streets of the village. I began to notice I was never completely alone. If I turned down an empty street, someone always stepped from a doorway or entered from the opposite end. Wherever I went, within 5 minutes, a dozen people were strolling near me. And I realized these people were watching me tensely, as a cat watches a mouse or another cat.
Quite fortunate you came back early, Mr. Llewellyn. Your dinner this evening is a rather special one.
Special? What do you mean by that?
You are to have a guest.
Oh, who?
An old friend. She's coming now.
The girl who came toward us across the room was lithe and slim. She moved with the sinuous grace of a young panther. She was lovely, exotic, and terrifyingly beautiful.
May I present Mr. Arthur Llewellyn, Miss Ilse? He's been with us for 2 days.
Yes, I know. My mother told me. May I sit down, Mr. Llewellyn?
Oh,
Oh, yes, please do. Here, permit me.
Thank you. You may serve us, Dundreary.
Thank you, Miss Ilsa.
Then, you're Ilsa?
Yes. Don't you remember me, Arthur?
From last night. It was you last night, wasn't it?
Yes, and other nights. Can't you remember all the other nights?
No. No.
Then we shall have to try that much harder. It's been such a very long time.
Please, Ilsa. What is it all of you talk about? I don't understand any of it.
You will, Arthur. Unless you leave, of course. Weren't you planning to take a train to London in the morning?
Yes. No. No, I've changed my mind.
I'm glad you did. We'll try to make you happy here, my mother and I. And then perhaps you'll stay a long, long time.
No. I must leave for sure in a day or two.
Suppose we wait and see. And meanwhile, if there's anything you want, all you have to do is ask me.
All right. Why don't you tell me about...
Yes, Arthur? About what?
No. No, I don't want to know. I don't want you to tell me. Suddenly I realized I was afraid to know. I was afraid. I should leave now, but I couldn't leave. It was Ilsa. She attracted, repelled, fascinated, and horrified me, all in single flashes of blasting emotion. I felt the presence of a great grey curtain ready to roll back at any moment and leave me on the brink of an awful adventure. And I knew the village held its breath, watched and waited. And then on the evening of the 5th day, the whole ghastly secret exploded into hideous life. After dinner, Ilsa had asked me to walk with her. It was the first time I'd been outside the inn after dark. We walked through the village in the moonlight, saying very little, and came finally to the stone rampart above the sunken plain. We were quite alone.
Look, Arthur. It's a full moon tonight. Do you know what that means?
Yes. It means I can see more clearly how beautiful you are.
Do you really believe that? Do you think I'm beautiful?
Like a soft, sleek leopard in a warm jungle of shadows. But wait, I'll see you even better in a moment.
Arthur, what are you doing?
These dry leaves by the wall. They'll make an excellent bonfire. There, you see?
No. No.
What's wrong?
The fire. No, put it out.
All right, Ilsa. Don't worry, it's all right. There. Didn't even get a chance to get started. There, you see, it's out.
Yes, I see.
Why did it bother you so much?
Don't you remember the fire?
No. What fire?
No. Don't talk of it. Look at me instead. Look at me, Arthur.
Yes, Ilsa?
Arthur, do you love me?
Yes. Yes, Ilsa, I love you.
I'm glad. That means you'll come back to us then.
I don't know what you mean, Ilsa.
You can know everything tonight, if you want to.
Yes, I do. I do, Ilsa.
You must know a part of it already, down inside. You must remember some of it, don't you?
Yes. It's like something buried for centuries, deep inside of me. Now it's beginning to come alive.
Let it come alive. Don't fight against it. You belonged to us once, long ago, and you still belong.
Yes. I seem to know that.
That's why you came back. You heard me calling. You heard them calling. And you came seeking the old life again.
Yes, but... Ilsa, I'm afraid.
Are you afraid of me? Look at me.
Ilsa...
Will you live the old life again? With me tonight?
Yes.
have known that you would, because I own you, Arthur. You belong to me, and I want you to come with me. I shall never let you escape from me again.
Yes, yes.
Go back to the inn, then. Wait for me, Arthur. I shall come for you. Tonight.
Back at the inn, I paced the floor of my room, the tense, uncontrollable excitement driving me along in a nervous frenzy. The dry crypt of the memory had broken open, and all the things I'd hidden away for centuries poured into my consciousness. I knew now why I'd come here. I knew what I was going to do. And I knew that I was lost. I sensed the rising stir of movement throughout the inn, and outside in the courtyard below my window. I knew what to expect when I threw open the window. From every window of the inn and from those of the houses about the court were leaping great monstrous beasts with soft dark fur and eyes that gleamed with eerie phosphorescence. Cats of human size. This was the secret of Malton. Lycanthropy, the witchcraft of centuries long dead and buried. The half-human cries floated up to me, and the moon cast their dark shadows on the ground as they padded across the courtyard and vanished through the narrow streets of the village, heading for a hideous rendezvous. This is what I'd been. This is what I wanted to be now. I scarcely heard the door of the room open behind me.
Are you ready, my love? Shall we join them?
Yes.
Here, Arthur, the sacred bomb, made of vervain and mistletoe and blind things out of the sea. Remember?
Yes. Yes, I remember.
Take it. Use it. We'll change now. Transform. Leap from the window and join them. Lead us again, Arthur.
Yes. But not here, Ilsa. Not yet. Wait until we get there. Then we'll change.
If you wish. Come then, Arthur, to the stone wall above the grove. That's where we'll change, on the stone rampart.
In the grove on the sunken plain beneath the wall, insane shadows writhed in the moonlight and postured in the luminous mist. 1,000 of the devil's own were dancing in an unearthly music born from the harmony of the black sacrifice, crying out in delirious abandon, calling to the thing that now lived inside of me and struggled screaming in my skull, trying to answer them back. I fought against them, fought against Ilsa, pleading and clinging with her soft arms about my neck.
No, Arthur, come with me now if you love me.
I love you, but I can't do it. I can't do it, not again, Ilsa.
Yes, my love, only an instant to change, and then we'll live forever.
Is it living without a soul?
Does it matter when I'm here?
Oh. No, once before I escaped. But I could never escape again. This time there'd be no turning back.
Am I not worth it? Look at me, my love.
I clung to the very edge of sanity, thought that I'd not be lost and damned forever. And at that very moment I knew what I could do.
Wait. What are you doing?
I found a match in my pocket, struck it, dropped it into the dry leaves that lay banked along the whole length of the stone wall.
No, Arthur, don't. I can't come to you through the fire. You're driving me away.
Yes, go into the valley, Ilsa. Goodbye, Ilsa. Goodbye.
You fool. You fool.
I turned from the wall of flame that for a few minutes would shut me off from the valley, ran through the moonlit streets, not back toward the Inn of the Golden Bower, but down the long road that led away from that cursed village of Malton.
Well, Mr. Llewellyn, I find this one of the most interesting cases of hallucination I've encountered since I began the practice of psychiatry.
I tell you, it really happened, Doctor.
And having investigated your story a bit during the past week, I'm in a position now to answer most of the questions that have been worrying you since you came back to London.
What do you mean, investigated?
I went up to Hereford and looked over some of the old records there. And then I motored over to Malton for a couple of hours.
Well, then you know it's all true. You saw it. You know I was there.
Oh, there's no question but what you were there, Mr. Llewellyn. The lady who runs the inn showed me your name in the register. Said you'd left quite suddenly without taking your luggage or paying your bill. She was really quite put out.
I see. Well, what about the records, Doctor, the ones you spoke of?
I think they really explain the whole thing, Mr. Llewellyn. It seems that during the 14th century, the village of Malton became a kind of headquarters in that part of the country for the practice of witchcraft.
Yes. Go on.
Numerous trials were held there in the late 1300s, and a great many men and women were convicted of sorcery and burned to death.
Yes.
In the records of a trial in 1372, I found the name of an Arthur Llewellyn and of Ilsa and her mother.
That proves it, then.
It proves a clear case of hallucination. You knew that story before you went there, not consciously, but somewhere down in your latent memory.
I knew nothing of it before.
That man was an ancestor of yours. The story must have been known in your family. When you arrived in Malton, accidentally, the association of the name just pulled the trigger, and your imagination did the rest.
But, Doctor, my parents died when I was 4. I've never been around any of my family.
No matter. You see, a childhood memory is amazingly persistent at times.
Yes. Yes, I suppose it is. I knew then what I had to do. The only thing I could do. There'd be no use in talking further with the doctor. He'd find some phrase of science to cover everything. He'd even try to explain away the mark I still carried across my shoulder, where Ilsa had thrown her arm about me in those last mad minutes on the rampart. A mark that was covered with a soft gray fur, like the fur of a cat. Yes, I knew now what had to be done, and must be done while I still retain my sanity. One last act, final and irrevocable. An act that begins by walking into the railway station at Charing Cross.
Good evening, sir. May I help you?
Yes. I'd like a ticket to Malton.
Malton? I don't believe I have.
It's a village on the Swansea line near the border of Wales.
Oh, yes. Yes, here it is. I don't believe I've ever sold a ticket to Malton before.
I don't doubt it.
Let's see now. 4 and 6. Single fare. First class. Did you wish a return or one way? What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Make it one way.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson and directed by Norman MacDonald, today brought you Ancient Sorceries by Algernon Blackwood. Adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Paul Frees as Arthur Llewellyn, Kay Brinker as Ilsa, Anne Morrison as Madam, and William Conrad as the Doctor. Music is conceived by Cy Fewer with Eddie Dunstetter at the console. Next week...
After you've had a hard day at the office or bending over a hot stove, next week at this time, when your problems seem too much for you, we offer you escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. Goodbye, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, where 99 million people gather every week. The Columbia Broadcasting System.
Worried about about income tax? Wonder if spring will ever come? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you escape.
You were alone in your book-lined study, listening to the idiot gibberings of a parrot, and beside you, caressing you, is an invisible thing, a loathsome thing, from which you must escape.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Today, we escape to the west end of London, to a little house just off Hyde Park, where lived a man who didn't like people. Today, we escape in the remarkable tale of Robert Hitchens, how love came to Professor Guildea.
It has been said that no night ever passes over London town that sees not some strange and curious event, some occurrence too incredible to bear repeating in the light of day. How horribly true are those words. It's been over a year now since the night I first met the amazing Professor Guildea. I had delivered a sermon at the rectory of St. Swithin in the East End, and was passing through the foyer in departure when I was accosted brusquely by an odd little man, remarkably sharp-featured, his face adorned by a pointed black goatee.
A moment, please. I believe you're Father Murchison?
Yes, that's right, but I don't think I've had the pleasure of...
Perhaps you've heard of me. My name's Guildea, Professor Guildea.
Guildea, why, yes, you're the famous psychologist.
Yes, psychologist, biologist, anthropologist, philosopher, and that takes care of that. Sir, I never attend religious services.
It appears you've done so tonight.
I came for one reason, to hear you. Find out why an otherwise normal colleague of mine thinks you're the most convincing speaker he's ever listened to.
And did you find out?
No, your talk was intelligent, logical. Therefore, it could never convince anybody of anything.
Thank you. You're a direct man, Professor Guildea.
No time to be anything else. I'd like to have you dine with me, Father Murchison, say a week from tonight, 7 o'clock. I live at number 100 Hyde Park in the West End.
Can't we make it 2 weeks? I'm preaching at St. Saviour's that night, just round the corner from the park. And I'm afraid it'll have to be nearer 8:30 than 7. The service isn't over so early.
We can't even agree on a time for dinner. Very well, 8:30, 2 weeks. Good night, sir.
Perhaps if I had known then what I haven't, no matter. I kept the appointment, of course. After an excellent dinner, we climbed the stairs to Guildea's study. A large, book-lined room running the width of the house, with windows at the end overlooking the park. In front of those windows stood the one incongruous thing in the room. A cage holding a large grey parrot. In fact, as I recall, it was the parrot that was responsible for my first becoming aware of what exact opposites Guildea and I really were. The same parrot that was responsible for so many other things that happened later.
Quiet, Napoleon. One day that infernal squawking of yours will drive me to wring your neck.
Somehow it surprises me, Guildea. I mean, you're keeping a pet.
I possess a parrot, Father Murchison, that's all. Made a study of the imitative faculties of animals some months ago. Bought the bird then, never got rid of it.
I see.
Started the bad habit of scratching the fool thing's head. It loves it, you see. In 5 minutes, he'll be screaming for more of it. Why would it surprise you so much if I kept a pet?
Because I believe you're the most self-sufficient man I ever met.
More than that, actually. I detest affection, any display of sentimentality.
But you do feel the need of close human sympathy in your life.
None whatsoever. A reasonable amount of companionship, naturally, but that's all. Father Murchison, I'm one person who does not love his fellow men.
Nonetheless, some of your discoveries have been of great benefit to mankind.
Entirely accidental.
I thought you were be liking a coffee now, sir.
Yes, Pitting. Put it down on the table, please.
Thank you, sir. Will there be anything else?
No, that's all, Pitting.
Yes, sir.
An excellent servant there. I know nothing of Pitting's thoughts or feelings, nor he of mine. Perfect relationship.
And if a crisis occurred, if you needed to call on him as a friend?
It would take a considerable crisis.
What about the parrot? Surely you must regard it with some affection, otherwise you'd get rid of it.
Napoleon, merely a specimen. Birds as devoid of sentimentality as I am. He can only imitate whatever he sees and hears.
Guildea, have you ever been in love?
Neither with anyone in particular, nor with love itself. Being in love, as you put it, or having someone in love with me, would be the most monstrous and horrible situation I could possibly imagine.
All of a sudden, I feel a very great sense of pity.
For whom?
For you. Yet, as different as we were, my life dedicated to all humanity, and Guildea's life stripped of its own humanity, I called again at the house at Hyde Park many times, and we became friends. We talked away many evening hours in the months that followed, sitting by the book-covered table in the long study, the grey parrot chattering away in the background, with the lamplight barely reaching the farther corners. It was on such a night not long ago that the thing began. Guildea had seemed uncommonly nervous since dinner, and had spent much of the time pacing in front of the windows that faced the park.
How's it, Murchison? I can't seem to relax tonight. I ever feel a completely unaccountable presentiment. A sense that something remarkable was about to happen.
Oh, yes. Usually it never did. Turned out to be the effect of too much coffee.
Oh, it's not that. Coffee doesn't bother me. Nothing does.
Well, then suppose you stop pacing the floor and sit down. You're wearing me out.
Noticed how well Napoleon's learned to imitate your voice?
Yes, I have, and it's almost insulting at times.
The worst thing is feeling such a strong compulsion to do something which I know to be ridiculous.
Exactly what is it you're talking about, Guildea?
Well, it's foolish even to mention it, but I wonder if you'd pardon me for a few minutes.
Of course.
Help yourself some more coffee. I'll be right back.
I walked over and stood stroking the feathers of the parrot through the bars of his cage. I'd grown rather fond of the ugly bird, but it always startled me to hear him mimic some phrase of mine or Guildea's. Napoleon, you're a true creature of the devil.
Creature devil.
I happened to glance out of the window toward the park across the street. The arc lamp at the corner threw a dim gleam across a bench set just inside the paling. And I was surprised to see Professor Guildea moving about the bench, peering under it, behind it, staring into the shadows nearby. He kept this up for some minutes, then crossed the street and came back toward the house. In a moment, I heard him ascending the stairs.
Father Murchison, has anyone entered this room since I went out?
I know. You mean Pitting, of course. He hasn't been in.
Strange. Very strange.
I saw you across the street in the park. What were you doing?
I thought I saw something, wondered what it was, that's all.
Did you find out?
No. What's wrong with the parrot? Never made a sound like that before.
What do you mean? He seems all right.
Napoleon, stop that.
What was it you thought you saw?
Nothing. As you said, most likely it was the coffee. Only I'm very much afraid that... Oh, no. In this day and age, it's impossible.
It was nearly a week later that I received a phone call in my quarters at the rectory. Father Murchison here.
This is Pitting, sir. Professor Guildea's man.
Oh, yes, Pitting. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. The master would greatly appreciate your calling at the house this evening, if it's convenient, sir.
Oh, anything wrong?
I could not say, sir.
But why didn't he phone himself? He isn't ill?
I think not. He suggested 8 o'clock, sir. May I tell him you'll come?
Yes. Yes, by all means. Tell him I'll be there at 8.
Beating about the bush, Father Murchison. I am nervous. Of course I am. Plenty of reason for it.
Oh, you're working too hard.
Now I'm working too hard. The other night it was coffee. As a matter of fact, it's neither one. Be quiet, Napoleon.
Maybe you'd better tell me just what is the matter, Guildea.
Do you feel the presence in this room of anyone beside the two of us?
Well, there's Napoleon, of course.
No, I don't mean the parrot. He senses it too, though.
Senses what?
When you were here last week, I left the house for a few minutes, you remember?
Yes.
I'd been watching someone sitting on that bench across in the park, a shadowy sort of figure. I had to find out what it was.
But you found nothing. You told me when you came back.
That's right. But I left the front door open. When I came back in, I felt suddenly that someone or something had entered ahead of me.
Oh, come now, really, Guildea.
I knew also that they'd found their way to this room.
But I was here all the time. No one came in.
Father Murchison, whoever or whatever came into the house that night, came into this room, is still here right now.
You, Guildea, a scientist.
Yes. Ridiculous, isn't it? But it's true. I'm only able to feel its presence. Napoleon can see it. Look at him now. Now, wouldn't you say he was watching something over there in the far corner of the room?
No, I'd say he's just being as foolish as a parrot usually is.
You, a skeptic?
About this, yes. You've been working too hard. You need a vacation.
I haven't told you the worst part of it. Would you say that I'm an attractive man?
Frankly, no. Oh, I suppose to a certain type of society woman you might...
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Well, then, what are you talking about?
I don't know whether this intruder is a woman, man, child, animal, but whatever it is, it holds a vast affection for me.
What?
You imagine anything so utterly monstrous, horrible? Murchison, the thing, is in love with me.
I could not, would not accept Guildea's belief. And yet the alternative was even more frightful. For I could only decide that the long hours of study and lecturing had affected his mind, had brought him in fact to the verge of insanity. I persuaded him finally to get away for a while, leave the house, forget his professional problems, take a short trip. I accompanied him to Victoria Station, saw him off on the boat train, and then, caught up in my duties, I had little time to consider the strange affair for nearly 10 days. Father Murchison here.
I hope I haven't disturbed you.
Professor Guildea, then you're back in London.
Yes, I've been back for 3 days.
Well, you should have called me. How was the trip?
Quite pleasant. I took passage on a channel coaster. The sea air was wonderful.
You weren't troubled on the trip?
Oh, no. Not at all. It waited here for me.
What? Then you mean to
Could
tell
you
me...
come over here tonight?
You mean now?
Yes, if you could. You see, I can prove it to you now.
Very well. I shall come right over. I stood there by the phone and shivered. The thing had become so real to him now that he felt he could go away and leave it, then come back and find it waiting for him.
That's why I didn't call you when I first came back. I wanted to be sure. So I've waited 3 days, and every day has been worse than the one before.
In what way? What do you mean?
I mean, the thing was waiting for me here. Glad I was back, fawned all over me. It was more insistently obnoxious all the time.
Guildea, do you mean you've seen the thing? Heard it?
No, I haven't seen it, haven't heard it, but I know it's here. I can feel it, sense it. Try to put it in words, and it becomes absurd.
If you'd like some unsolicited advice, call in a doctor. Have him look you over.
And what doctor in London knows any more about the human mind than I do?
I know, but when it's your own mind...
No. You're thinking of hysteria, hallucination. I know all the symptoms. It's not that simple. Anyway, I told you I could prove it to you. You'll notice I've thrown a cover over Napoleon's cage.
Yes, I've been wondering about it.
Part of my proof. He's been here, you know, all the time I was gone, here in this room.
Yes, but
I want you to get behind those curtains with me. Then I'll reach out and pull the cloth off his cage. I don't want him to see us.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, but, all right, come on.
Ready? I'll uncover him.
We crouched there behind the curtains watching the parrot. He protested a while at being so rudely disturbed by some unseen agency. Climbed about the cage with claws and beak, pecked at crumbs, appeared entirely normal. After a time, he began to fix his attention on a spot across the room. There was nothing there.
Watch him. Look at him now.
In the parrot's mind, at least, someone or something was approaching the cage. And yet, the room was empty. Whatever it was apparently had reached the cage now. And Napoleon welcomed it with friendly chortling. The hairs rose on the back of my neck, for the bird was cooing and gurgling as he did when I or Guildea scratched the feathers on his head. I could almost fancy that I saw long, white, ghostly fingers reaching through the bars of the cage.
Watch him and listen to him. He's talking to the thing, imitating it. See what you think.
The bird was moving about in the cage now, nodding his head in a very peculiar manner, uttering the most extraordinary sounds. I began to realize that he was imitating the thing he saw standing by his cage. And then the full horror of it came over me. I tried to hide the thought from Guildea, but he had already seen it in my eyes.
So you see it too. That's all I wanted to know. That I wasn't imagining it. There's no point in hiding there any longer. That was my proof.
But perhaps someone was here while you were gone.
I've questioned Pitting and the cook. No one has been here.
It can't be. Such a thing just can't be.
Father Murchison, it is.
Well, where? Where is it now? Can you tell me where it is?
Not exactly. Somewhere in the room, not too far away. I can feel that. Napoleon, of course, can see it.
There is some rational explanation, Guildea. There has to be.
No whistling in the dark, Father. You recognize the same thing I did.
I know what you mean, of course.
I can't stand much more of it. There's only something I can fight, strike out at. I'm not a coward, but I can't see it, hear it. I can only feel it trying to touch me somehow, trying to get close to me, drooling with desire and affection, fondness for me. I can't keep it away. It gets closer all the time.
Guildea, you've got to get hold of yourself.
Get hold of myself. You saw the way that parrot imitated the thing, those mannerisms, that gibberish. You know what it means as well as I do.
I saw it, but it can't possibly...
Can't you feel how hideous it is for me? I can't stop it. The thing makes love to me, caresses me, and whatever it is, it has no mind. You saw that. That thing is a slobbering idiot.
I walked home at a late hour, trying desperately to think of some reasonable answer to the whole strange affair. I could not accept Guildea's explanation of the actions of the parrot, though the bird had produced an extraordinary illusion of an invisible presence in that room. In a day gone by, perhaps I might have been called in to deal with an evil spirit. I thought of retribution. Guildea had always borne an unnatural distaste for human love. Was he now being forced to endure the unnatural love of some monstrous being as punishment? I cast such thoughts away from me. Yet I could not quite accept the only other reasonable solution, that my friend was insane. It was very late when I fell asleep. The following evening I preached at Warwick Chapel and returned to my quarters about 9. I found that Pitting had called a short time before and left a rather puzzling message. Implore that you come to Hyde Park at once. Otherwise, I cannot answer for the consequences. But what is it you're trying to say, Pitting? He's not himself. In what way is he not himself?
I can only suggest, sir, that you talk to him yourself. Here we are.
Yes, come in.
I'll leave you now, sir.
Oh, Murchison, come in.
Guildea, what in the name of heaven is wrong? Pitting said you'd been upset, but he didn't say...
Inhuman machine.
What happened? What did he do?
Nothing. That's just it. Nothing.
But I don't see then what...
Oh, you warned me about it once. You said I'd meet a crisis, need him as a friend, and he wouldn't be there. Well, it happened.
But yeah, I'm going to call a doctor. I've never seen you in a state like this before.
No, I don't need a doctor. I'm all right now. For a little while, anyway. At least I think I am.
Then what was it? What happened?
That thing touched me. Really touched me, I mean, for the first time. It's only been trying to before. The only way I can put it, it rubbed itself against my soul. It was horrible.
Now, Guildea, you...
Don't tell me! I've got to get hold of myself. I know what I'm saying. I'm sorry. If you'd felt it yourself, you'd know what I mean. It was disgusting. Filthy. If it lasted one more minute, I know I should have gone screaming mad.
But you don't feel it now?
No, not now. I lost my head, I guess. I struck out with my fists. I tore at myself, screamed for help. Pitting came and thought I was drunk. But I could feel it touching me, sickening, soft, tender, inside of me.
But it left you then. You forced it away.
Yes, it's still here in the room somewhere, but it hasn't tried to touch me again.
Now that settles it. Guildea, you're leaving here tonight. It didn't follow you when you took the trip before. It stayed here. That's one way you can be free of it.
Then you believe in the thing, too. Believe it's real.
It's real for you, and that's enough. Now, if I remember it, you're giving a lecture at Oxford the last of the week. You're going on up there now. I'll help you pack.
I could do that. I could stay at the Grosvenor tonight, take a train in the morning. It's right near the station.
And it's all agreed. I'll get at it.
Wait. Look at Napoleon. Standing there by his cage. He's talking to it. Imitating it. Can you imagine what that thing must look like?
Never mind. Let me help you start packing.
But I didn't tell you what it really did this evening. What came closest to driving me insane.
It doesn't matter.
The thing kissed me, Murchison. But not from the outside. I could feel it. Warm and wet. Kissing my lips. From the inside.
Guildea stayed at the hotel that night and caught the train out to Oxford the next morning. 4 days later, I received a wire from him. I'm still feeling a bit shaky, but everything else is all right. No sign of any visitor. Why don't you try to come up for the lecture Friday night? And please get rid of Napoleon for me. Signed, Guildea. On sudden impulse, I decided to accept his invitation. My train was late, and I arrived at Oxford with only time enough to go directly to the seminar. I slid into my seat just as Guildea was introduced and began his talk. He was pale and perhaps a bit drawn, but seemed otherwise composed and in control of himself. As I sat there, my mind wandered away from his talk, seeking some solution for the horrible problem which I regarded as being as much my own as Guildea's. I decided I would try to persuade him to sell the house in Hyde Park Place, since his strange fixation seemed to be bound up with it. Try to find lodgings elsewhere. Some 10 minutes passed when suddenly I noticed Guildea was becoming very nervous. He faltered in his talk, seemed to be confused. He stood there on the platform, deathly pale, his hands out as though pushing something away from him. I knew what was wrong. Pardon me, please. Could I get through? Pardon me, let me to him, please. Pardon me, I'm his friend. Guildea, can you hear me?
Murchison.
Yes. Everything's all right.
It came here. Found me out. It rubbed up against me on the platform. It's no use. Take me back to London.
We arrived back in London late the next afternoon. Guildea was a broken old man. He shivered continually, trembled as though shaken by a chill. He claimed to sense the awful presence of that thing always nearby us, accompanying us, and he was constantly terror-stricken lest it might try to touch him again. I stayed with him in the house in Hyde Park, and as night drew on, we sat in the long, book-filled study on the second floor. Pitting brought coffee to us and then withdrew. We found little to talk about, and the silence of the room seemed doubly oppressive without the familiar chatter of the parrot in the background.
What did you do with it, Murchison? Napoleon, I mean.
I boarded him with a pet shop in Shaftesbury Avenue. I thought you might want him back again after you'd reconsidered.
No, I don't want him back. You still can't feel its presence, can you?
No, Guildea, I'm afraid I can't.
Wish to heaven I couldn't. It's in here with us now, you know.
Now, please.
It doesn't matter. That's no use. I can't fight it any longer. There's no way to fight it.
Perhaps that may be the answer, to stop fighting it. You said yourself that you felt it was fond of you, meant you no harm. Then why not stop fighting? Try to return its fondness, its love, if you will.
You don't know what you're asking. Even the thought of it sickens me. Fondness, love, that thing.
Perhaps it may be the only way out.
Then there's no way out. I tell you, Murchison, I've only one feeling for that creature, that's hatred. Hatred, disgust, and hatred.
Please, try to be calm.
Wait.
What is it?
Perhaps that's it. Listen. Whatever you are, beast or devil, I hate you, do you hear? I hate you. Murchison, that's doing it. It's recoiling, withdrawing, I can feel it.
Guildea, please.
I hate you. I hate you. Murchison, it wants to leave. It's beginning to hate me, too, but it wants to leave now. Open the door. Go downstairs and open the front door. Open the front door and let it out.
All right, Guildea, if you'll feel better about it.
Me to go alone, but I know how to fight it now. Go, Murchison, hurry. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
I ran down the stairs and threw open the front door. I stood there, breathing in the night air. It was clear and cold, and the stars hung overhead. I looked across to the park, saw the glow from the street lamp falling on the empty bench directly opposite. And at that moment came a sound that froze my blood with horror. I stood there, paralyzed, unable to move. Seconds passed, perhaps minutes, I don't know. I don't know how long I stood there. I glanced across at the empty bench, and for one moment thought I saw a shadow sitting on it. A vague shadow as Guildea saw it one night weeks before. And then the bench was empty, and I heard Pitting running down the stairs.
Oh, Murchison, come quickly. Professor Guildea, it was his heart, I think.
Yes, I believe it was his heart.
But Father Murchison, he's lying up there now, sir. He's dead.
Dead? Dead, Pitting? I hope so. I sincerely hope so.
Escape, produced by William N. Robeson and directed by Norman MacDonald, today brought you How Love Came to Professor Guildea by Robert Hitchens, adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Louis Van Rooten as Professor Guildea, Parley Bear as Father Murchison, Harry Bartell as Pitting, and Paul Frees as the Parrot. Music was conceived by Cy Fewer with Richard Orant at the console. Next week,
when the coming weekend offers little to stir the imagination, when routine inactivity stares you in the face, when you're already tired of doing nothing, we offer you Escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Wonder if prices will ever come down? Fed up with the post-war world? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape. You are standing at the edge of an enchanted grove, lured by a soft, caressing voice inviting you to destruction. You have nearly sold your soul to an ancient goddess from whom you must escape. Escape, produced by William N. Robeson and designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure. Today we escape to the African veldt and an enchanted shrine of great antiquity. as John Buchan told it in his weird story, The Grove of Ashcaroff. We stumbled onto the place, Lawson and I, during the second day after we left Torquay. We'd travel on horseback some 40 miles or so through typical African veldt, lush and green, with plenty of game and good hunting. It was late afternoon when we topped a rise and saw before us a small plateau of such beauty that we both reined in and sat staring at it, not speaking for some moments. A tiny, sparkling stream wandered through the verdant meadow grasses, and at the edge of the plateau tumbled in a crystal waterfall down to the plain below. Graceful clumps of strange trees grew here and there, and bushes blazed in a riot of bloom. I'd seen nothing remotely like it in all the miles we'd come. It stood alone, proud and lovely, an alien island in a sea of tropic jungle. Great heavens, John, in your whole life, have you ever seen anything like it? If some artist had designed that plateau, placed every tree and bush by hand, it couldn't be any more perfect. It's almost weird, isn't it? Yes. It shouldn't be here. It doesn't belong. But there isn't a plant growing over there that's like any we've seen in the rest of the jungle. Probably a difference in minerals in the soil, something of that kind. It's more than that. They're not even the same varieties. It's true. That one grove standing alone there near the edge, I've never seen trees that slender and fragile. And the bark, it looks like silver velvet. Silver velvet, huh? That's quite an idea, John. Yes, I guess it is at that. Anyway, those doves seem to like it. They never stop circling over that one particular grove. They're probably nesting there. A flock of white doves circling over a silver grove. But, there's something vaguely familiar about that. Yes, there is. John, can you make out some kind of a dark shape there through the trees over toward the center of the grove? Yes. Yes. Come on, let's ride over and take a look, huh? No. Not now. Huh? Why? I mean, you'll have plenty of chance to see it later. What are you trying to say? John, I'm going to build a home here. A home? Out here in the middle of the jungle, miles from... I'll build a road in from Torquay. I've got money enough and no one but me to spend it. I've always wanted to live in Africa. Always, Lawson? Or for the last 5 minutes? It doesn't matter. Somehow, even though I'd never seen it, I've dreamed of this spot all my life. I've got to live here. Want to live here, I mean. But so quickly, at least think it over first. No, I don't have to think it over. I know what has to be done. John, it's here that I build my tabernacle. I couldn't understand Lawson giving in to this sudden foolish impulse. It wasn't like him. But there was nothing I could do. I left him at Torquay the next day and returned to the matter-of-fact world of business in London. And it was 3 years before I saw him again. 3 years before I returned to Africa to find that he'd built a manor house in the jungle and equipped it with all the conveniences of the English countryside, of which not the least was Travers, his butler.
And may I be so bold as to say it, Mr. Buchan, it's very good to see you again, sir. You bring a breath of old London out of this heathen, foreign country.
Well, thank you, Travers. It's good to see you again. This is some different from the old granite front on Grosvenor Square, isn't it?
Indeed it is, sir. A great many things are different.
Yes. Mr. Lawson's turned this jungle clearing into a paradise on earth.
If you'll pardon me, sir, I think paradise is not quite the word.
Oh, well...
perhaps I'd better tell the master you've arrived, Mr. Buchan. He's been lying down.
Oh, not ill, I hope.
I'll tell him you're here, sir.
Travers left the room and I waited alone, wondering at the strangeness of his manner. I had finally decided it must be induced by homesickness. I looked about me, as impressed by the austere magnificence of the library as I'd been by the grounds outside. There was an imposing mantelpiece of ebony at one end, and on it was placed an object elegantly fashioned of alabaster in the form of a half moon. It was curiously carved with signs of the zodiac. There was something compelling, almost unearthly about it. Fascinated, I reached out my hand.
I should not touch that if I were you.
Huh? Oh, Lawson! I didn't hear you come in.
How are you, John?
Oh, fine, Lawson. Couldn't be better. You?
So was you down?
Why, yes. Thank you. It's a wonderful seeing you again, old man. Been wanting to get down here for the last 3 years, but you know how it is in London. Time gets away from you, and the first thing you know...
Yes, of course. Yes. Cigar?
No, thank you. Not now. When I finally did get the chance, I couldn't even wait for an answer from you. I sent a wire and then followed it right on down.
Yes, it surprised me a bit. Haven't had a visitor here for the last 2 years.
Oh? Well, then that explains why Travis talked the way he did. I thought it must be...
What do you mean Travis talked the way he did? What did he say?
Lawson, what's wrong with you? He didn't say anything.
Well, he's better not.
I'm afraid
Forget it. I'm sorry, John. I haven't felt very well the last few days.
Well, that explains it. I say, at least you seem to be eating all right. You're actually getting a bit plump.
Actually, I'm fat. Gross, flabby, and obscenely fat. Isn't that what you really mean?
Well, no. I was only joking.
Never mind. What do you think of the place, John?
The place? Why, it's amazing. It's beautiful. No one could ever believe it without seeing it. I doubt if there's another place like it anywhere in the world.
You're right about that. There isn't another place like it anywhere in the world.
Oh, that reminds me. I noticed you left the Grove as it was without bothering it. Tell me, did you ever find out what it was we saw that afternoon?
Yes. Yes, John, I found what it was.
Well?
John, I have an overseer here named McJobson, quite a competent man. I want you to leave with him in the morning, take a 3 or 4 day hunting trip. He knows the country. He'll find you plenty of game.
Oh, but I came here to see you.
I'm fighting a bout of fever. Happens every so often. I'll be all right by the time you get back.
Oh, now, wait a minute. If you're sick, I'm certainly not going to run.
You'll do what I tell you.
Lawson.
I'm sorry to talk this way, but I know what has to be done.
All right, Lawson. Whatever you say.
Good. Settle it. Believe me, John, I know what's best for me.
Yes. I'm sure you do.
Another thing, John. That carving that sits on the mantel, I must ask you not to touch it. It's quite old and rare. I should not like anything to happen to it.
That night when I retired, I found it impossible to sleep. I tossed fitfully, trying to think of some reason for the great change that came over my friend in these past 3 years. Drugs, drink, actual sickness, either physical or mental? No, none of them gave any complete answer. My windows looked out across to the turf, and I saw the grove of strange trees. It was bathed now in the moonlight by a soft silvery haze. Even now, in the middle of the night, the flock of doves circled in the air above it, gleaming white from wing and breast as they wheeled in the shafts of moonlight. I dozed off finally, to wake up suddenly in that brief hour before the first light of dawn. I happened to glance from the window, and in the fading moonglow saw a figure approaching the house. It drew near, and I saw it was Lawson, barefooted, wearing a white dressing gown. Shortly, I heard his weary steps pass my door, and afterward the house was silent. I lay there wide awake. Lawson had been coming from the direction of the grove.
Good morning, Mr. Button.
Oh, morning, McJobson. Oh, sit down.
Thank you, sir. Now, in regards to that hunting trip we talked about, I can offer you a choice of 2 or 3...
No, never mind. I'm not going on any hunting trip.
But last night we decided...
That was last night, McJobson. Tell me, how long has Mr. Lawson been sick?
Oh, it comes and goes. Happens about once a month like this. He's not the man that he was when I first came here.
Do you have any ideas about what might be the matter?
Aye.
Well, what are they?
If I told you what was in my head, you'd think me daft. Why don't you wait until tomorrow? You won't need to ask. It's the full moon, the next.
Full moon? What does that have to do with it?
You'll find it in the Bible. Read the 11th chapter of the 2nd book of Kings. Who tells you?
I found the Bible in the library and thumbed it open to the passage he'd mentioned. I read through it once without understanding. And then one sentence seemed to leap out from the page. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians. Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth, of course, Ashtaroth. Goddess of the ancient East, whose strange rituals held a dark fascination for the children of Israel, over and over luring them away from their fierce prophets to worship at her shrines. The white doves of Ashtaroth circling the shrine of her silver grove. Why, then the grove at the end of the turf must hide a lost shrine dedicated to her worship. But what of Lawson? Did his blood carry one fraction from old Israel with the same ancient weakness to hear and answer the call of the goddess? Had he become an acolyte of Ashtaroth? What weird rites did he perform in the grove at night? And then I remembered tonight. The worship of Ashtaroth had always reached its climax on the night of the full moon. Lawson did not appear all day. And that evening, after dinner, McJobson and I took up our watch on the dark veranda, looking into the windows of the library. We'd been there at least an hour when...
Look. It's Mr. Lawson. He just came into the library.
I see him. Wait. What's he after?
I suppose he wants the little figure on the mantel.
We watched him take the carved half moon of alabaster and slip it into the pocket of the robe he was wearing. Then he turned and left the room. In a moment, he came out the front door and walked off across the turf in the moonlight.
You'd best give him a bit of a start and then follow him.
No, he'd see us for sure in that moonlight.
I do not think so. He'd not look back now, sir, as there were 10 of us following.
McJobson, what is it all about?
You've read the book?
Yes. Yes, it's the ancient goddess Ashtaroth, but what is the ceremony? What does he do, and what is it that made him the way he is?
The ceremony you'll be seeing, Mr. Buchan. As to what has made him like he is, he does an evil thing, and all the while he knows it to be evil. He cannot help himself, and he knows that too.
Yes. I think I see what you mean.
We'd best be going now. He's gone into the grove.
We crossed the turf quickly and passed into the black and silver shadows of the moonlit grove, working our way carefully toward the center. The only sound at first was the piping of the doves circling high over the lacy branches above our heads. I saw as we approached that the center of the grove had been cleared to form a small circular arena, was covered with smooth turf. And standing in the middle of it was a cone of rock 30 feet high, a smooth, sharp tower of stone that pointed up toward the tops of the trees. And then I saw Lawson. He stood by the base of the conical tower, his arms uplifted, the symbol of the half moon bound to his forehead.
enchanting words with meanings I could not even guess. Now Lawson threw off his white robe and began a curious kind of dance, moving around the foot of the cone on a worn path beaten in the turf. The same path he must have followed many other nights before. He moved faster and faster, uttering now and again a wild cry. We stared entranced at the circle of moonlight. And as he danced, a strange new sound slipped into my consciousness. An earthly melody that seemed to come from the tower, from the trees. Or may perhaps have been born within my own mind, tricked by the magic fantasy of moonlight, shadows, and perhaps madness. It brought to me one vivid thought of the warm, soft lips of an unseen goddess, of lips incarnadine, whispering gently and sensuously across the reeds of a panpipe. I stirred uneasily, felt the quickening of my pulse.
Try to resist it, Mr. Buchan. It's only a thing of evil cloaked in a false beauty.
McJobson heard or felt it too. Then it was more than a trick of my own senses. Something in me thrilled to the call of the weird melody. I wanted to rush out and throw myself at the base of the stone tower to dance as Lawson was doing, to spend all eternity in adoration and worship of the beauty of Ashcaroff.
No, Mr. Buchan. Think what it's done to him. Fight it, lad, fight it.
I lost all knowledge of time. The dance had grown swifter and fiercer. The moonlit figure in the clearing moved faster and faster, posturing and gyrating in tempo to the crazy rhythm. My blood was pounding in my throat, my ears ringing. The music surged through my brain in ever-mounting waves of incandescent sound. Now I was beyond reason, possessed by an overpowering frenzy when the cock crew. Then the grove was deathly still, and at the foot of the tower, Lawson lay unconscious.
How is it, Mr. Buchan?
He's lost a lot of blood, but I think he'll be all right.
Good. It was a mere thing.
Travis got a couple of sleeping tablets into him. He'll not be waking up before tonight, at least. McJobson, I suppose you know what we have to do.
I'm well aware of what should be done, sir. But I've no idea how to do it.
I think I do. I shall take full responsibility, but I'll need men, all we can get.
The natives will no go near the place. But there's some 30 white men on the tobacco farm a few miles back on the bush. But they want a high wage.
I'll pay it, just get them.
Would you mind telling me what you're proposing to do, sir?
Yes. Something that may sound as mad as Lawson himself. I'm going to deal with that grove the same way King Josiah did.
It comes back to me vaguely.
Yeah. Here it is. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which Solomon the king of Israel had builded for Ashtaroth, the abomination of the Sidonians, did the king defile. And he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves. Both the altar and the high place he brake down, and burned the high place, and stamped it small to powder, and burned the grove.
Aye, 'tis the word of God. We'll need dynamite, but I have plenty of it down at the workshop. I'll go after the men first. We should be ready to start by 9 o'clock this morning.
It was just past 9 when we entered the grove, carrying axes and a couple of shotguns, and driving several teams of oxen. A light breeze had sprung up, and it whispered and rustled in the branches of the silver trees. We took care of the dogs first, shot them one by one until we killed them all, 27, and piled their white bodies at the foot of the pointed rock. Then the men set to work with the axes, chopping through the slender trunks of the trees.
Don't listen to the trees. Get every bush. Drag them into fire. What do I have? All right, come on.
I stood by the stone tower, the high place of King Solomon, and watched while the work went on. Gradually born perhaps in the sighing wind, a strange fancy crept into my mind.
Oh, no. Please don't. Please, no.
I fancied I could hear a voice coming from the tower, from the trees. This voice was soft, warm, and pleading.
Listen with your heart. Can the spirit within you not hear and feel?
The heart of all sorrow was in that voice, and the soul of all loveliness. Distant, tenuous, with all the bodiless grace of a goddess older than time and desire.
Please, listen. Can you not know that I am beautiful? And once gone, I'm gone forever.
I could not believe that I was imagining this soft and lovely voice. I felt a sudden and overpowering adoration for this exquisite creature who whispered in the breath of the wind. I wanted to call out to the men, order them to stop desecration of her home and sanctuary. Then I thought of Lawson, of what he'd become, and I fought back the impulse.
How can you judge who knows so little? One who is part of the whole divinity of nature.
No, I won't. I can't listen to.
Look at me but once with the eyes of your heart, and you'll belong to me forever.
No. Please, no.
You have killed my doves, covered their white breasts with blood. Are you not yet satisfied?
It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
No, please. You could stop now and leave the high place. New trees would grow, and other doves would come and nest in them.
But I can't.
What are you saying, Mr. Buchan? I couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, I'm ready to put the dynamite around the tower here, if you'll move back a little way.
McJobson, perhaps we could leave the tower. Maybe it's enough to clear the grove.
Tis not enough. The book says, and their children remember the altars and the groves by the green trees upon the high hills.
No.
That's no good, Mr. Buchan. Pay no heed to the voices of the wind. Every last stone must be destroyed.
No.
He is a stern man, and a cruel man, and his words are vile with hate.
No.
Leave me only this one last course.
No. All right, McJobson. Go ahead with it.
Place the boxes of dynamite close together, lads. Easy now.
No. Even now it's not too late.
I walked away slowly. The piles of tree trunks were burning now. The smoke swirled in the wind. I would leave this place tonight. Yes, I would leave this place forever. Then write a note for Lawson, telling him of what I'd done. And I was very tired.
Oh, please, listen, while there's yet time. The thing once done will never be undone. And once gone, I
can never return.
I knew that my act, my reason told me all these things. I knew that this act that I'd committed had saved Lawson, had saved his life and perhaps his reason. And yet I wondered if perhaps in so doing I was not driving from its very last refuge on earth something that was so rare and lovely. If perhaps I was not destroying a very beautiful thing forever.
Stop now. Please, oh, please.
All right. Color code.
No. Oh, no. No.
Silence. Nothing but silence. And I heard the sweet voice no more. And my face was wet with tears.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson, directed by Norman MacDonald. Today brought you The Grove of Ashcaroff by John Buchan. Adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield. With Paul Frees as Buchan, Bill Conrad as Lawson, Kay Brinker as Ashtaroth, Raymond Lawrence as McJobson, and Eric Snowden as Travers. Music was conceived by Cy Fewer, with Eddie Dunstetter at the console. Next week.
When you're tired from working all week, when the weekend offers little diversion, next week at this time, when your problems seem just too much for you, we offer you Escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. This is CBS, where 99 million people gather every week, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are alone on a desert island with a tribe of hungry cannibals who think you are a god. A tribe of natives who would eat you rather than let you escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson and designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the South Seas and a cannibal kingdom in H.G. Wells' famous story, Jimmy Goggles, the God. I doubt you'll remember anything of the Ocean Pioneer, though a bit of the story that came to public knowledge made headlines in the newspapers at the time. Blimey, now that I think of it, it's been over 40 years ago it happened. 40 years. And at times yet I can still wake up in the middle of the night and see that cold, dead eye of Jimmy Goggles staring at me from the darkness. That gives me the creeps even now. It all started the night the Ocean Pioneer went to the bottom of the Sonner coast. Only 2 survivors, aside from myself, came out of that wreck. Mr. Sanders, the first mate, and a seaman named Jacob. And with a bit of luck, we had enough food and water in the longboat to see us safe to Papua.
Give away, lads. 3 nights will put us on dry land again.
Aye, it is lucky men we are this time.
All right, just runs our time here, Jacob. As it were for Captain Wells and 10 of the lads back there.
Lying under 20 fathom of blinking green water they are.
Ain't all that's laying back there either, lads.
You meaning something like that, Mr. Saunders?
Does either of you lads know the cargo we carried?
Aye. Copra mostly and some spices.
Not that. Lads, at Guinea we shipped aboard a chest full of gold dust. Worth 40,000 pounds.
40,000
pounds?
I wondered about that chest at the time, Mr. Saunders.
That chest is still back there, lad. In Captain Wells' cabin.
Aye. 20 fathoms down. That'll be a nice bit of work for the salvage company.
Not necessarily, eh?
What is it you're meaning to say?
I'm the only man alive who knows ship's position when she sunk.
So you are. Go on, Mr. Saunders.
Suppose now, when we get to Papua, we give report ship struck 100 miles or so to the north. Then the salvage ship goes there, we come here, and pick up a title fortune for ourselves.
And how do we come here?
My brother-in-law has a brig in the Sydney trade. He'll come in with us. Well, lads, are you in or are you out?
40,000 pounds. I'm in.
Aye, 40,000 pounds. A bloomin' fortune there for the taking. Of course we went in on it. Back in Papua, Saunders made the arrangements with his brother-in-law, Captain Ferguson. And a fortnight later, we set forth in the brig Pride of Banya. There were just the 4 of us in the diving suit. It was one of them kind of diving suits that don't have a pump or airline. Carried its own tank of compressed air attached so you could walk around on the bottom independent-like. We hung the suit on the wall in a mess room, and believe me, it was some bright times we enjoyed besides it during the 3 weeks the Pride of Banya beat in towards Sonner Channel. We'd wonder how long it'd be before we'd get there, and what the salvage ship might be finding 100 miles away from the wreck. And all the time acting like we hadn't a care in the world. And that confounded diving suit would sway back and forth like a regular human being it would. The glass window in the front staring like a big eye in the middle of its fat copper head. We got so we'd talk to it like it was somebody. And we even give it a name. Jimmy Goggles, we called it. Jimmy Goggles. And every time we'd break open some rum, we'd pour a glass or so into Jimmy Goggles. So by the time we got to Sonner, instead of smelling rubbery, his insides was as sweet as a cask of rum. When we found the place, we was afraid to take the brig into the rocks where the wreck was lying. So we anchored about half mile off, and all of us rowed to it in the longboat.
Aye, it's still there, all right. I can see the tip of one of her masts above the water.
Devil take the mast. It's the fortune below I'm interested in.
Oh, fear. It'll be there, lad. Bed to the port a bit.
Hey, is it still agreed that I'm the one to go inside Jimmy Goggles to make the first trip down?
Aye, George. It's what we decided. Easy now. Nigh on to her.
I can't say I envy you none, George.
Back the oars now. Easy. There, got a line around the mast. Keep us from drifting. Better get into that diving suit, George.
Right away, Captain Ferguson.
Aye, just as happy it ain't me that's going down.
Huh?
Why not take it? What are you talking about? It'll be cold and dark down there at 20 fathom. Might be sights that ain't good for a man to see. In the dark and alone.
Jacobs, you wander on like an old woman. I reckon the look of 40,000 pounds will cure a heap of other sights.
I'm ready, sir. Except to secure the faceplate.
Good. You know how to operate the valve?
Aye, sir.
And turn on the air.
George, you'll find the chest in Captain's cabin. Move it if you can. Or see about the chances of getting a line on it.
Right, Joe.
And good luck.
Aye, good luck. Good luck.
Well, cheerio, lads. I closed the little glass window in my helmet and fastened it. Then I edged toward the stern. Saunders was saying something, but I couldn't make out what it was. We didn't have no ladder, so I slid over the stern and hung there by the gunwale for a minute with the helmet out of the water. I took a last look at the light of day, and then I let go. Slow it was. I sunk down through that green water. The only sound was the air bubbling out of the helmet valve. That valve, you understand, was the only way you had of controlling the descent of old Jimmy Goggles. If you opened it up, down you'd go. If you clamped it fairly tight, the suit would get full of air, and up you'd pop as fast as a man would care to. Full 5 minutes or more it took to sink that 20 fathom. Them ghostly sea ferns went slithering past like snakes, and big purple and red clumps of jagged coral. And the light from the surface getting dimmer and dimmer. So as by the time I hit bottom, it was pretty near dark. I was happy to find myself come right down on the deck of the old Ocean Pioneer. Aye, and a familiar sight she was, saving for the crabs skittering around her planks, the bloomin' fish swimming past my head and goggling in through the window of my helmet. I made my way to the deck cabin. Right before the door, I stumbled onto a blinking skeleton, lying there on the deck as peaceful as you please. Judging by the gold braid still hanging on it, it had been old Captain Wells himself, though there weren't enough left of it now to make a decent meal for an hungry guppy. Bobbed around like very gentle when I touched it, and all the time was wearing an horrible grin on its bony face. Like to give a man the shivers. I tell you certain I got through the business down there as quick as I could. Found the chest of gold and figured out the best way to get a blocking line on it. But even so, it must have been an half hour before I clamped the air valve and started for the top. Halfway up, something hit my helmet and slid on down past. I found myself looking right into the blooming face of First Mate Saunders. His mouth was hanging open, and a kind of pink smoke was drifting out of it and making a cloud in the water. I saw he had a spear run through his neck from one side to the other, and he was dead on the mackerel. He sunk on past out of sight, and then Jacobs drifted down from above, and I could see his head was all twisted to one side like and his neck was broken. He was dead, too. Then it hit me. The lads on top had been massacred by a boatload of them bloomin' heathen savages, and like as not if I poked my head out, the same would happen to me. Oh, blimey. I cracked open the helmet valve and shot down toward the bottom. I sat down there on a sunken rock for nigh on to 15 minutes, I guess, trying to figure out what to do. But any way a man would look at it, there weren't but one answer. So finally, crazy as it seemed, I got up and started out to walk ashore. After a while, the bottom began to slope up and it wasn't so dark anymore. Finally, my helmet poked up out of the water. I saw the beach about 50 yards away with dark jungle right behind it. I sloshed on through the water and came out on the sand. Then I opened the faceplate in Jimmy Goggles' head and
cut off the air from the tank and took a deep breath of the natural kind. That's when I saw them. At least 100 blinking savages painted up like banshees. It stepped out of the brush and started moving toward me, slow, beating soft on a couple of drums and growling low and evil-like. Well, George Herbert, you're in for it now, I tells myself. Half a mile of underwater walking and you're still forgetting your bloomin' throat cut. I snapped the faceplate partway shut and cracked the air valve a bit. The diving suit swelled up like a blessed frog. And I started walking toward them. When I got close, they moved back along two sides of a kind of path, and I walked right down the middle of it. It led back into the jungle, and pretty quickly come out in a little clearing with a grass hut standing in the middle of it. And sitting in front of the hut was an heathen idol, carved out in koa wood. Was grinning about as hideous as he ever hoped to see. And the idea hit me. I was in a spot. It couldn't be much worse, and maybe it would work. The natives seemed to be awed by Jimmy Goggles already. So I reached out and gave the idol a great push, expecting any second to feel a spear through my gullet. I looked up. Blimey, if them heathens weren't down on their faces, worshipping like mad. It had worked. Oh, not me, you understand. Except in the manner of speaking. It was Jimmy Goggles with his copper head and his one glass eye, with me inside him. They'd seen him walk up out in the sea, and they figured he was a god. Old rum-soaked Jimmy Goggles. A regular bloomin' god. After a while, it began to get on my nerves, so I went inside the hut. They stayed outside and didn't follow me, but they didn't go away, neither. In a couple of hours, it started to get dark, and I was wondering if they meant to spend the rest of their lives out there bowing on the ground. Finally, a tall native, painted up like a circus clown, stepped inside the door and stood there, just grinning like old Satan himself. Blimey, if I had me a pistol, my beauty, I'd have you grinning on the other side of your face.
Oh, would you now?
Huh? What?
You're speaking mighty bold for a man who's had a lot of luck.
Depart, unworthy mortal, before I smite you with light.
Oh, relax, one. I've been some time around plantations in Papua. Learned thing or two I did, including English language.
Jump in, Christopher. What the devil are you doing here?
Taking advantage my simple brethren. Something else I learned at Papua. My name, Mamala. I'm high priest, witch doctor, call it whatever you want.
Oh, I'm happy to know you. Mine's George Herbert, officer of the English brig Pride of Banyan.
The late brig, you might say. Boys burned it a couple of hours ago.
Burned it? What for? Aye. Why was it you attacked us in the first place?
Oh, a bit of go like that once in a while keeps boys feeling joyful like, George. It's harmless in manner of speaking.
Harmless, is it? That's for my boys it won't.
Oh, well. What were you diving for out there, anyhow?
Pearls.
So it's now, mate. You are looking over that wreck down there on the reef. What's aboard her?
All right, Mamela. She was carrying 40,000 pounds in gold dust.
40,000 pounds? Know where it is?
Aye.
We could use 40,000 pounds, couldn't we, George?
I'm listening.
We might make deal. You keep on being the god, and I be your high priest. You can't talk their language anyway. Between us, we'll have him eating out of our hands. Meanwhile, we'll figure a way to raise gold off the bottom.
Hold off. You mean I gotta go on wearing this bloomin' suit all the time?
Only if you want to stay alive. They found there was man inside it. I tear you to pieces.
Oh, me, it ain't all it's cracked up to be being a god.
At least you're alive, mate. And we'll both be rich.
Aye. Are they going to spend the night out there?
They'll be leaving after ceremony, except for guard of honor.
I understand you. What's the ceremony?
Oh, a little piece of business with owner of Briggs. We captured him alive, you know.
Captain Ferguson? What kind of business?
A bit of this, a bit of that. When they get done, they cook him, of course.
Cook him?
Well, now, you wouldn't expect boys to eat him raw. Wouldn't be civilized, you know. See you in the morning, George.
It was pretty horrible, all right. But what with one thing and another, I didn't feel as bad about it as I might have. After all, I hadn't known the captain too well anyhow. Nearly a month went by in mighty uncomfortable fashion. And all the time, Mamela was trying to figure some way to get that gold out of the wreck. I was right in with him at first. Then I got to noticing how he was always saying what he could do with 40,000 pounds. And then I'd kind of remind him we was apples, and he'd grin, strange-like, and so that's what he meant all the time. But I didn't trust him no wise. And I started stalling every way I could, and things stayed about as they were. I kept on being a garden. We couldn't get no proper chance to go after the gold. Then one morning, Mamela and most of the tribe went back into the jungle to hunt. I was sitting in the hut trying to think of some way to do for that heathen before he could do for me, when I happened to hear voices outside. I sneaked a look through the palm sedge. It was an Englishman, dressed up fit to kill in white canvas shorts and a sun helmet and all. He had a native interpreter all dressed up and walking with him.
Here now. They're idols. Tribal gods.
But it's been turned over. Do they no longer worship such things?
Master, I could...
Looky here, gents. If you'll step inside, I'll show you what they're worshipping.
Hey, now.
Come in, come in. Welcome, gents.
Stop that heated chattering. I taught you better.
Oh, now, take it easy, lad. Nothing but a diving suit, you know.
Yes, of course. I saw that. Who are you, anyway?
Yeah, no, let's not be asking names, seeing as I didn't ask yours.
There's no objection to telling you, sir. It's Bender. I'm with the Royal Anglico-Baphuan Missionary Society.
No, not really.
Please, no profanity.
Might be a threat. How'd you get here?
By sailing cutter, down coast from the Barnkiel Residency.
Well, you've had a bit of luck. If the boys was here, you'd be in a proper fix by now.
Oh, I dare say we'd be in no danger.
No danger, huh? What is it you'd call being cooked like a pork tenderloin? Have they done it to one of my friends?
An adventurer, no doubt. But the natives are well aware that if anything happened to me, there'd be a gunboat here from the residency in 48 hours.
Oh, that's how the wind blows, is it?
It is indeed. And may I ask why you're masquerading in that diving rig?
Aye. To keep from getting myself killed, that's why. The natives think this blinking rubber union suits a regular god.
I see. And you've been preying on their childish credulity.
Childish it may be, Mr. Bender, but they've got full-grown teeth. Aye, and I've seen them in action.
Well, you'll simply have to take your chances, because I'm going to expose you.
You know, you can't be doing that. Well, if they was to find out I was a human being, they'd do me in for fair.
Well, I'll help you as much as I can, but you should have thought of that before you tried exploiting them.
But you can't let it happen to a fellow Englishman.
Then why don't you leave now, while they're away? You'd likely be able to get aboard the ship that's working a mile or so down the coast.
What ship?
Some salvage vessel looking for a wreck. They think it might have drifted down the channel from the north.
Oh, it just might have it there. They might find it. Mr. Bender, I make a proposition.
I won't promise anything, but I'll listen.
Leave here now and sail down the coast a ways and stay till nightfall. Then come back as soon as it's dark, and I'll let you expose me to your heart's content. In fact, you might say, Mr. Bender, I'll even welcome it. Weren't nothing else to do. that salvage ship found who I was, I'd be in it for good. They'd know by now that we'd filed a false report about the position of the wreck, so we could get the girls for ourselves. They put me in the brig for sure. And if I tried to leave with Bender, he'd turn me into the first British resident we come across. I had no chance at all at the 40,000. And if I stayed here, like as not, I'd end up parceled amongst 100 heathen stomachs. But I had one chance of showing that blinking mammal as how you weren't the only one that knew a thing or two. I finally talked Bender into leaving, and about dusk, Mamela and the boys came back.
Understand that nosy man, Bender, was snooping around here this afternoon, George. Know anything about it?
Bender, eh? Oh, that's who it was. I saw him prowling around the clearing, but he didn't come inside the hut. I'd have given him what for if he had.
It's a good thing he didn't. It's a blasted nuisance, always interfering with established customs of the people.
Like witch doctors, eh, Mamela?
Gods, too, George. He'd do for you quick, and he would be.
Why don't the boys just eat it?
No. That would be too dangerous. He'd be missed and they'd send gunboats.
Not still around here somewhere, is he?
No. Women say he sailed on south.
Good. I'd just as leave not meet him face to face.
It was for him with that face you're wearing.
Aye, and I'm nigh on to being fed up with wearing it. Mamela me, auntie. I'll make you a proposition.
Mm-hmm. What kind of proposition, George?
Why don't you take over being God?
And what would you be doing if that happened?
Oh, leave me some food and water in one of the boats, and as soon as it's dark, I'll cut and run for it. It'll be easy for you to get the gold that way. Aye. And you can have the old 40,000.
Your generosity embarrasses me, George.
Anyways, supposing I was up and died sudden like. How'd you explain my body to the boys?
I have been thinking about that, but I hadn't figured it out yet.
I was wondering if you hadn't been.
You know a thing or two, don't you, George?
Enough to know you weren't going to share with me unless you had to.
Frankly, you're right. This may be best way. I'd have my little brethren right under my thumb. You out of my way with no need for explanation. All right, George. I'll keep the boys away from the clearing so you can make your break. Both be ready in half hour. Good luck.
Working out just as nice as you please. I made my break all right, but I wasn't heading for any boat. No, sir, not me. Leastwise, not yet. I hid myself in the jungle at the edge of the clearing. Then I waited. After a while, them savages started drifting back into the clearing, and pretty soon Mamela, all dressed up in Jimmy goggles, came out and sat in front of the hut, the way I'd been doing every night. And the bloomin' heathen started in bowing down, all just as usual. I waited a long time before I finally heard it. The commotion starting over at the far edge of the clearing and coming closer. It was Bender and his boy Friday, walking through the crowd to where Jimmy Goggles sat with Mamela inside him. The crowd moved aside and let him pass, but you could tell they were just waiting for that one-eyed god of theirs to knock him stone dead. He stopped in front of the hut.
All right, I'm back. Suppose you carry out your part of the bargain and take off that... Get out, you fool! I didn't really believe you were honest. All right, Thomas. Tell the natives this is nothing but a man dressed up. Hey, Connie!
Blimey, it's Bender didn't jump onto Memel and start turning at the front of the diving chute. And all the time that heathen witch doctor kept trying to fight him off. And it seemed as though Mamala hadn't known how to fasten the helmet properly, because suddenly it tipped back on his shoulders, and there he was. A face them savages knew as well as their own offspring. And they didn't like it even one little bit. Aye. They'd been taken in by one of their hometown boys, so to speak, and they weren't for having any. They didn't harm Bender none, but they shoved him off to one side. They made one grand rush for Memphis. And they got it. And blimey, if what happened then wasn't downright uncivil. I cut and run for it and tumbled into that boat and shoved off. I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for old Memela, though it wasn't as if he hadn't eaten his own share of human beings. And of course, he certainly wasn't a man who could be trusted at all. Well, it was a long time after, before I heard how Mr. Bender made out. Seems as though he couldn't get them bloomin' heathens to listen to him at all. Then one day he hit on the idea of climbing into that diving chute. And from then on he had a crowd around every time he'd open his mouth. As far as I know, old Jimmy Goggles may still be down there somewhere. With his battered copper head, and his rummy smell, and his one glass eye. He may still be doing business. Right down there at the same old stack.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape.
Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are a passenger aboard a submarine, making its last peaceful voyage across the sea. While unknown to you, the captain has a plan, which, if it succeeds, will mean for you and the entire crew a fate from which there can be no escape.
So listen now as Escape brings you Marianne Mosner and Francis Rosenwald's exciting story, The Log.
When I was a cub reporter, my boss told me, be there. Don't let your own emotions color your story. Stick to the facts. So, these are the facts. This is the way it happened. I met Captain Jan Zabatos in a Scandinavian port. During the last war, he'd been in command of a submarine, the only sub of a nation that fought the dictators side by side with the Allies. When he was finally forced into this neutral port, the captain preferred internment to surrender. After that, his nation went out of the business of being a nation. He was left behind with his ship, unwanted by the Allies, and a burden to the government that had become his permanent host. To pay for the vessel's berth and maintenance, the authorities turned her into a tourist's exhibit, permitting her skipper to stay aboard as caretaker and tourist guide. We met during one of those guided tours.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the tour of the SS Seagull, a great ship with a peerless war record. It was my honor and privilege to guide her across hostile waters as master of this man-of-war that gave battle to the last torpedo. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. You are very welcome all, and this way if you please.
You got a few minutes, Captain? I'm Bill Rawlins, New York Globe. I enjoyed your tour a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlins. Always glad to talk to gentlemen of the press. I presume you would like to write a story on the Seagull?
Well, to be honest about it, sir, I'd rather write about her skipper.
I am honored. But without the Seagull, you won't have much of a story. She and I are comrades in arms.
The war has been over a long time, Captain.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Haven't you ever thought of going home?
Mr. Rollins, this is my home, and always will be.
As we walked across the deck, the Seagull came to life the way her skipper talked about her exploits at sea. And I saw 1,500 tons of steel that had never faltered, never failed. I was busy taking notes when the man came up the gangplank, stocky, brisk, dressed in a natty gray suit, a briefcase under his arm.
How do, gentlemen? Where do I find the man in charge?
I'm in command of the Seagull, Captain Jan Shabatos. What can I do for you?
The name's Andrews. Here's my card. I represent the Liverpool office of the Marine Salvage and Surplus Corporation. You mind if I look around?
The next tour of the Seagull commences at 16 o'clock.
That's fine. You go right ahead. I know my way around ships. Bought and sold them all my life. This is my first time.
I'm afraid you must be mistaken, sir. The Seagull is not for sale.
Not anymore. My company just bought her. I closed the deal yesterday.
Look, this can't be. Nobody has authority to sell my ship.
The government has, according to international law. This isn't your ship anymore, Captain. Now, do you realize what it costs this country to keep her docked here?
I suppose I knew that this was going to happen. Excuse me, sir, what does your company plan to do with the Seagull?
Scrap her. What else is she good for?
Yes, of course. What else is... You plan to break her up here?
No, we'll have to tow her across to Liverpool.
Mr. Andrews, the Seagull is perfectly capable to sail under her own power.
All the way across the North Sea? No. It must be pretty rusty by now.
My ship is in as good condition as she was 10 years ago when we put in this port.
I know how you feel, Skipper, but if you don't mind, I'd rather play it safe.
No, I don't think I made myself clear, sir. This ship has had the finest maintenance that you find aboard any vessel. I have seen to that myself. Would you care to go below and look about, sir?
Sure, why not?
Then if you will follow me. Rust and corrosion, I understand.
She was a beauty, all right. Her diesels reposing in gleaming silence. Her eye, a Zeiss periscope, set to scan the horizon. Her tubes ready for torpedoes. I felt a strange affinity toward this ship that to Andrews meant just so many tons of metal to be turned into X amount of dollars, while to her captain she was a whole world of tradition. A world now coming to an end.
Until I suppose you think that the Seagull should be dismantled and scrapped?
Well, I'm afraid that's what we bought her for.
Then may I respectfully make a last request on her behalf?
I'll be happy to oblige if it's anything reasonable.
Don't tow her away like a crippled ship. Let me guide her on this last journey. All we need is 1 week, a skeleton crew. My services are free.
I don't know. All right. I'll tell you what, Skipper. I'll check with my company and get in touch with you.
Well, that sounds like a good idea to me, Andrews. You'd be saving your company quite a bit of money.
My firm's allergic to taking chances.
You don't take chances with the Seagull.
The cold logic of the dollar in the bank, not the captain's last request, persuaded the scrap middleman to take a well-calculated risk on the Seagull and her master. Mr. Andrews was to accompany the ship on her final journey. I requested and was granted permission to go along and cover the voyage for my paper. It was a gray, overcast morning when we boarded the Seagull. She was straining gently at her anchors with the last of the ebb tide.
I hope the skipper hired a decent cook. Nothing like sea air to give a man an appetite.
I'm not looking forward to a picnic, Mr. Andrews. All I want is a story.
You won't find it in this barge, Rawlins. But I can give you plenty of stories. My company isn't averse to publicity.
When we reached the bridge, we found a changed man. Captain Jan Zabados, commander of the submarine Seagull, wearing a freshly creased uniform, windbreaker, and his well-worn battle cap.
Anchor secure, sir.
All engines back aft.
All engines back aft, sir.
Course 005.
005, sir.
Port engine, back 2/3. Starboard engine, ahead, standard.
Port engine back 2/3. Starboard engine ahead, standard, sir.
Stand by, all hands.
Standing by, sir.
Now. Well, gentlemen, we are off.
A little chilly this morning, Skipper.
Perfect weather.
Makes you hungry anyway. What time do we...
Breakfast will be served in my quarters in 10 minutes, Mr. Andrews.
Come on down, Rollins. Let's get some chow.
We had breakfast. It was better than Andrews had expected. And he was in an expansive mood when we returned to the bridge. He'd fortified himself with a thick cigar which stuck out of his mouth like a stubby finger pointed at the captain.
How's it going, Skipper?
Passing the 3-mile zone, sir.
Weather seems to be clearing up. Maybe we can do a little deep-sea fishing, huh, Rollins?
I've never fished from a submarine, Mr. Andrews.
Sorry, gentlemen. No fishing. This is not a pleasure cruise.
That's the step, Skipper. Business before pleasure.
And I agree, sir. You will leave the bridge now.
Why? What's wrong?
Nothing, sir. We are getting ready to submerge.
What are you talking about? Submerge? On whose orders?
My orders, Mr. Andrews.
Nothing doing. That's against regulations, and you know it. This trip is to be made on the surface unless it's an emergency.
Clear diving rudders.
Diving rudders clear, sir.
Did you hear what I said?
Ready, the tanks.
Tank standing by, sir.
That's enough, Sabatos. You know what the orders are. I'm not going to allow you...
I must inform you, sir, that I am in sole command of the Seagull. I shall surrender her to no one but her rightful owner, my country.
Your country? You've got no country. It's a satellite.
Then I shall sail the seas until I have one again.
You know what you're saying? That's piracy.
Then, Mr. Andrews, I shall be a pirate, shan't I? Clear the deck. Diving stations.
Diving stations.
Out of your mind.
Passengers below, please. Now, that's an order, Mr. Andrews.
Standing by, sir.
Well, I'd found my story. When we slipped beneath the surface of the North Sea, the captain let the men have rum and brandy to celebrate the Seagull's return to what he called active duty.
He's crazy. He's gone stark raving crazy. The crew that madman picked himself. Well, we'll see about this. Hey, Bosun! Bosun! Come over here.
Know how to handle this ship? I know my job, sir. How'd you like a bonus? Say $1,000. I'd like it fine, sir. All right. Take over. Never mind the captain. I'll back you up. I'm sorry, sir. He's my captain.
I'm in charge of this ship. He's under my orders.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm under his orders.
That's how it went with the rest of the crew. They were all men without a country, handpicked by the captain, fanatically devoted to their master and the ship that was their world. In the meantime, I noticed some activity on the part of the captain and his radio operator. A constant flow of communications between the ship's wireless and her master's tiny cabin. Andrews and I went there.
Harry?
The captain was sitting on the bunk, poring over a chart-filled table.
Mind if you and I have a little talk?
I'm quite busy. 5 minutes, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you. Don't you think this farce has gone far enough? You'll be running out of supplies, you know, and then what?
The sea is abundant with stores of all kinds, Mr. Andrews.
How do you mean?
I shall requisition what I need.
You can't be serious.
Can't I? I have guns, fore and aft, shells to go with them. Give me time, I shall obtain torpedoes as well.
You'll never get away with this.
That remains to be seen. My wireless has picked up the Blenheim Castle, an English freighter. We will sight her by nightfall.
You're going to stop her?
Exactly, Mr. Andrews. There are a few supplies that we need. I am sure her captain will oblige before continuing on his way.
We will return to Escape in just a moment. But first, maybe it rained where you are today. The United States is pretty big, and it's hard for somebody on a coast-to-coast network to keep track of the weather everywhere. But even if they did, remember, it's been a very dry summer. The danger of forest fires is on every hand. Please be careful with those campfires those cigarettes, those lighted matches. And now, back to Escape.
Approximately 8 hours later, the bosun's pipe shrilled as the Seagull rose stealthily to the ocean surface. Dead ahead in a choppy sea loomed the massive hull of the freighter Blenheim Castle, her foaming nose eerily phosphorescent, the position lights glimmering across the sea. Our searchlight reached up to her bridge with a long white finger. We clearly made out the tanker's captain standing on his bridge in a splotch of white glare, bellowing through a megaphone.
Hey! Ho, 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 ho!
Heave to! Coming alongside!
Who are you?
Raider! Pass the line!
Raider! I won't pass a cow's tail! Where's the war?
It is starting now!
That's a bloody lie! Heave away!
Ready above, or you will be sunk!
Why, you kettle-bottom, knock-down heartbreaker! I'll bust your cat most till you make water!
Follow my orders, or I open fire!
Why don't you man up and talk off?
I give you 3 minutes.
I'll give you a kick in the belly!
It was incredible. Here we were at peace, and Captain Zabatos had started his own private war. He had the guns, and the tanker's captain had only his ship. Before the Seagull's gun crew could get a bearing, the tanker lurched forward, picking up speed. Wheel hard over, bent on ramming us. Our guns started to fire, blasting away at the tanker. But it kept coming on. Closer, closer. The sharp bow cutting through the choppy sea.
Dive! 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 Dive!
We weren't fast enough. There was a grinding lurch, and we knew the Seagull had been damaged in the collision with the freighter, but we couldn't tell how badly. The first realization of disaster came when we saw the captain, his hair damp with perspiration, eyes gleaming feverishly, and a face turned ashen gray.
Nobody leaves this station without my orders. You gentlemen stay out of the way.
I'm not going to take orders from you or anybody else. I represent the owners of this ship.
You do?
You heard me, Zabatos.
Then tell your owner she has been rammed.
I'll hold you responsible.
As her commander, I accept sole responsibility for ship and crew, including you and Mr. Owens.
That's very noble, mister, but I'm a businessman. What's the extent of the damage?
Conning tower smashed and the scope tube cracked.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, surface, send an SOS.
I never have sent an SOS, and I never will.
That's your business. I'm an American citizen, and so is Mr. Rowland. You can't hold us against our...
You will be put ashore when conditions are favorable.
Let me set you straight, Zabatos. If you want to go down in misery, I'm not stopping you. But you can't force me to stick around until this tin can's full of holes. I want to get out of here. Now, I order you for the last time, surface the signal for help.
Andrews, if you wish to leave now, you may take escape hatch.
You're crazy.
Not at all. The damage is trifling. But since you feel so frightened of your life, I suggest that you leave.
So help me, when we get out of this, I'm going to have you busted, jailed, hung if I can.
Get out of my way if you please. I have no time to discuss the matter with you.
Come on, Andrews.
Whose side are you on, anyway, Rollins?
Nobody's. I just want to live. The hours passed slowly at the ocean bottom. The stillness echoing the attempts of the men working to repair the damage. The air was getting foul, breathing becoming more difficult.
Storage battery's going, sir.
Then dim the lights, bosun.
Oxygen's running low.
Ration it.
I've got 2 men in sick bay already.
All right. All right. Carry on.
Sir.
What is it, bosun?
The men need air. It's very bad aft.
All right, very well, bosun. We go up. All engines ready.
All engines ready, sir.
Clear pressure tanks.
Clearing tank, sir.
Diving rudder. Standard.
Vessels approaching overhead, sir.
Eave rudder, hold tanks.
Surface vessel calling on out channel, sir.
Don't answer.
British subchaser closing in, sir. Request ship-to-ship communication.
All right. I talk to them. Stand by.
SS Seagull coming in. Go ahead. NS-127.
Are you in trouble, Seagull? No trouble, sir. Surface at once. State your conditions.
None.
Then I regretfully refuse her.
Following orders, Seagull. Come up, or we drop depth charges.
Do so, then.
You can't get away. We've got a sonar fix on you.
No surrender.
We are ready with depth charges, Seagull.
Wait! Get back!
Wait,
there! American sound here! We need hot communications!
The first depth charge was a warning, followed by another coming closer. Another still closer. The pressure was enormous. The ship rocked from bow to stern and started to take water.
All engines ahead full!
All engines ahead full, sir.
Course 02, standard.
Course 02, standard, sir.
Oh, quiet, Captain. This is wrong. It can't help now.
Stand out of my way, Mr. Rawlins.
You're a naval officer, not a murderer. Your ship is finished. You have no right to kill your crew. And that's what it's going to mean if you don't stop.
This is my ship. My life. No, you don't understand.
It's still murder.
Standing by for your orders, sir.
Well, what are you going to do?
Oh. Surface.
Surface!
Surface! Stand by, surface!
No response, sir. Tanks won't operate.
All engines stop!
All engines stop!
Now what?
I seem to have no choice. Do I? Stand by to abandon ship.
Abandon ship!
That was almost the end of it. The sub couldn't get up to the surface. She could only go down. And the way she was taking water, it wasn't going to be long. The men lined up outside the escape chamber. And one by one, they shook hands with the captain as they moved by. You could see in his eyes what they meant to him. And in their low voices, their feelings for him.
Goodbye, Captain. Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, Captain. Goodbye, Mr. Captain.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, sir.
Then it was Andrew's turn to go.
The bosun is in the lock. He will give you your instructions as to how to get to the surface.
I lived through this, Apollos. I'm going to see
I know. I am sorry for the discomfort you have been caused. Goodbye, Mr. Andrews.
Coming, Rollins?
Sure. You go ahead. One at a time, you know.
Well, good luck.
And to you.
Now, Mr. Owens, huh? I imagine you would have quite a story to write for your newspaper.
Well, let's forget that. It's not important. What about you? Andrews isn't kidding, you know. Once you get up there...
I wonder if... Would you do me one last service?
Of course. He got his log out and started to write. I looked over his shoulder as he made his last entry. All men off ship. Strong list to port. Storage batteries 0. Oxygen 20. Ship secure. Signed Captain Jan Zabatos, Commander SS Seagull.
You oblige me by taking this log up with you. It can be fastened to your belt.
Well, why don't you carry it?
There are one or two other things I must take with me.
Now, look.
No, Mr. Owens, go on. I will follow you.
Yes, but...
Please go on.
Okay. Hurry up, though, will you? She won't last long. I got up to the surface. A boat from the sub-chaser picked me up 5 minutes later. Every man of the crew and Andrews was safe. After that, we cruised about for hours, waiting, hoping that Zabatos would appear. But he didn't. I should have known he'd stay with the Seagull. The skipper of the chaser understood what had happened a lot better after he'd read the log. I guess seamen have a feeling about such things. Well, that's the story. That's all there is to it.
Under the direction of Anthony Ellis, Escape has brought you The Log, a story by Marianne Mosder and Francis Rosenwald, starring Lawrence Dobkin and Byron Kane. Featured in the cast were Alan Reed, Kurt Martell, Frank Gerstle, Eric Snowden, Richard Peel, and Jim Nesser. The special music for Escape was composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Next week...
You are walking the streets of an Indian city. Terrifying, sweltering streets. While the man you fear has already made his mark on you. A mark from which there can be no escape.
So listen next week, when Escape will bring you James Henderson's frightening story, The Untouchable. I Confess is the graphic title of tomorrow night's Lux Radio Theater film play adaptation. Cary Grant and Phyllis Thaxter co-star. You'll remember I Confess as one of Alfred Hitchcock's most suspenseful thrillers, and you'll enjoy every minute of it on most of these same stations tomorrow night when CBS Radio presents the Lux Radio Theater. This is Roy Rowan speaking. Remember, you can hear Jack Benny every Sunday night on the CBS Radio Network.
Have you shaken that spring cold yet? Wondering if you'll get a new Easter bonnet this year? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
You were aboard a Chinese junk run aground off the coast of Borneo. And paddling toward you are the canoes of the deadly Dayak headhunters. Your powder is wet, and your throat is dry, because for you, there is no escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the Orient of 150 years ago, to the Manila of 1790, and Richard Matthews Hallett's story of a wooden ship and an iron man. Misfortune's Isle. The water which was lying at anchor so close up against the jetty I could have leaned over and stood on the wheels of the elegant Spanish carriages clattering along the promenade. That's exactly what I felt like doing. I'd been away from Salem for 3 years now. 3 years of sailing a trader brig through the China Seas and south into the Spice Islands. All for what? The whole thing had grown stale suddenly. I was plainly and simply bored. Young Poe stood beside me there at the taffrail and tried to console me with philosophy. He'd anchored his sailing junk alongside earlier in the day and come aboard to renew a friendship that started 2 years before at Tien Sin, when I hauled him out from under an executioner's axe. He was under it because he just sold me 6 fine fat pigs without remembering they happened to be the sacred property of the Tien Sin temple. Oh, Yang Po was a real philosopher, all right.
Anyway, my friend, I reserve my sympathies for the poor. You have gained much wealth in trade.
Aye, and a few measly gold pieces. But the trouble is, out here, a man can't go it on his own. He needs backing.
What more backing could a rash man desire than those 8 brass cannon at the rail?
Aye, they're fair guns, all right. But it's a flag I'm speaking of.
Do these unworthy eyes not see a pin up there at the masthead?
The bunning of Salem swings no weight out here. In the south, it's the Dutch who call the turn. On the coast, the British, and here in Manila, it's the Spanish. Man has... Young Po. There she comes now, in the second carriage there. That's the 4th time since high noon she's come back.
4 fine horses and 2 footmen. She rides in style.
Watch. She'll look up at the ship. She has every time today. They.
That one. The little caged bird.
You know her?
I know of her. She is wife of Don Narciso Crispo, the Spanish nobleman who is Captain General of the island south of Zamboanga. He is in residence here in Manila.
She looks very sad. Why is she called the little caged bird?
One glimpse of Don Narciso would answer your question better than 1,000 words.
She's very beautiful, too. I'll swear she looked back and smiled just then.
Captain Arad, once in pity, I set free a parakeet which I had found caught in a net. I still bear a scar from its beak.
Some things may be worth taking chances for.
I find it so much simpler to go to sleep and dream of maidens on the moon.
Oh, but the moon's too far away.
Hey, Rat, where are you?
Huh? Oh, up here, Michael, on the quarterdeck.
Then the honorable red-headed one is still your first mate?
Aye, that he is. What's the matter, Michael?
Matter indeed. Haven't you heard all the excitement in town? I've been looking... young fool, haven't they hung you yet?
This unworthy one is touched by your concern, Mr. Oakley.
What do you mean by excitement? I've been on board all day.
Now, last night, with all their soldiers on guard and the stone ramparts and all, a band of pirates slipped ashore down coast and got through into the city.
Pirates?
Aye, 10,000 bushels of misfortune. They may possibly think it was me.
Oh, they have no clue as to who it was. Got away scot-free, they did. And they almost abducted the Captain General of Zamboanga himself.
What?
Aye. An important grandee by the name of Don Narciso something or other. His guard finally heard him.
Pity. Fortune not with you, Captain Arad.
But here's the part that'll stop you. There is no one in Manila that knows who they were, except yours truly, Michael O'Kane.
Go on.
Here, have a look at that.
Why, it's a Manchester cutlass. Aye. And there's the mark on the handle. Why, it's one we traded to Serif.
Aye, the bandit king of North Borneo. And it was me found this morning on the beach where the pirate boat came ashore.
You found it?
No, not quite. A Malay by the name of Jambu brought it to me.
Jambu. 10,000 sampans filled with spoiled fish.
You know the fellow?
I have used him as interpreter. He speaks Dayak. But in some former incarnation, he undoubtedly was ill.
You know, I think this may be exactly what I need.
Need? For what, Eric?
To make fortunes for the three of us.
I certainly remember an unexpected appointment.
Young Po. It's a plan that won't work without you. I'm not talking of bare profits. This means a fortune.
I am amazed. There is much talk of money, and yet very little talk of Spanish ladies.
I've heard rumors on shore about these Spanish lasses. For one thing, they wear no stockings.
Huh? And how's a man to know it, Michael? You can't count too much on hearsay.
Well, no, it was a Spaniard that told me.
All right, now listen, lad. Let me tell you the plan. And if we're all agreed, I'll go ashore and talk to this Don Narciso.
After I have heard it, I think I shall go and sacrifice White Rooster to Queen of Heaven, though I doubt it will do a great deal of good.
The only thing I can't understand is why this Jambu didn't take the cutlass to Don Narciso in the first place.
It is quite possible he did take it there in first place, Captain Harrod. It is point worth consideration.
It took a bit of talking right enough, but finally the others agreed to the plan. And no more than 2 hours later, I was talking to the Captain General of Zamboango himself. He turned out to be a little monkey of a man, yellow as a faded sunflower and much older than I expected to find.
I'm quite well satisfied regarding your identification of those who perpetrated the outrage, Captain Harrod. But addictions and fatalities. I have also heard the stories of this pirate Serif.
No, I think a broadside of my 32-pounders can furnish him enough fatalities, Excellency.
It is not that simple. They say his headquarters on the Borneo coast is nothing less than a fortress.
It's only a bamboo stockade lying at the mouth of the river. And it's in range of the guns on my brig. My friend Yang Po has been there.
But hard against the mouth of the river is the Pluchalaka.
Misfortune's Isle. And on it, limestone caves filled with birds' nests worth $50 a pound in Canton.
That may well be, Captain Harrod. But there is also the Upas tree. You must have heard of it.
Aye. But I count a little on hearsay, Excellency.
It is not hearsay. The Dayak headhunters poison the spears and arrows with its juices. I have seen men scratched by them die like that.
Some things are worth taking chances for.
I must say that I quite agree with you, Dulcita.
Delfina, Captain Harrod, may I present my wife, Doña Delfina de Crispo, Captain Harrod.
I'm on it.
Narciso, I have heard it all. You must agree to this expedition.
Huh?
You know the king's offer. Any man who reached these islands of pirates to be made a conde with lands and titles.
To have both lands and titles, my dear. What is it you expect from this, Captain Harrod?
A fortune, Excellency.
Huh?
The birds' nests themselves should be worth $500,000 Yankee dollars. And there's gold and antimony in the river. And trade with the Dayaks.
Precisely what is the plan of yours?
Well, 50 of Serif's men are Chinese who once served Yang Po. They'll come in with us if he can get word to them. That'll make things easier.
And how do you expect to get word to them?
Yang Po and I'll sail in ahead of his junk and try to contact them. My mate will bring up the water witch 24 hours later, and then we'll attack.
And exactly why have you come to me?
Were I to do it without official support, I'd be just a pirate myself, wouldn't I?
I don't know. It would be a great thing if it could be done.
Narciso, why not think of it tonight and decide in the morning?
That may be a wise suggestion.
Now allow me to show you out, Captain Harrod.
By your leave, Excellency.
I'll see you tomorrow then. Good day, Captain.
This way, please. She will agree. You may depend on it.
Good. I hope also that His Excellency will accompany us personally.
He will. You can be certain of it.
You seem quite sure of that.
Who do you think it was who had the cutlass sent to you?
You?
Here is the door, Capitan. I will say adiosito now. In our language, it means goodbye for a little while.
For a little while, huh? Well, in that case, adiosito. Delfino was right. The next morning, he agreed to it. And 2 days later, we sailed out of Manila Harbor. Don Narciso accompanied me on Young Poe's junk, and Michael O'Kane followed at the helm of the Water Witch. Our luck deserted us as we rounded the Corregidor and sailed square into the tail end of a typhoon. There was little wind, but a heavy sea was running, and it took us on the port bow for all that night and the next day. We lost sight of the Water Witch, and the leaky old junk pitched and rolled like a dory. Young Poe stayed mostly below in his bunk and dreamed peacefully of the maidens on the moon, while I stayed on deck and skippered her through it. It was late the second night before I had a chance to go down to my cabin.
Buenas noches, Capitan.
Delfina, what in the name of the devil are you doing aboard?
Being tossed about mostly. It is a very unsteady ship you have, Capitan.
Well, it should be a lot more unsteady when 100 Dyak headhunters start trying to board her. How did you arrive here?
In a sack of feathers. It's really all that saved me during the storm, you know.
Oh, confound it. Don't you realize your husband is on board? Sleeping in the deck cabins. Suppose he should come down here for something.
He did once. I hid in the wardrobe.
Oh, all the fool tricks.
But you did say adiosito. For a little while.
Yes, but it wasn't an invitation.
Who could tell? Anyway, I shall prove quite valuable to you.
I doubt it.
You will see. Narciso will become frightened at the last moment. He always does.
And what will you do?
Whatever is required at the time. I am not afraid of fighting, my Capitan. I have seen it before.
Found it. We had a fortune in our reach, and now you come along and ruin it.
You underestimate me.
Well, I won't do that again.
You are very rude.
I meant to be. Why did you marry him?
I had no choice. My father was ambitious. Narciso was influential.
And did your father realize his ambition?
He became a colonel and was killed at Santiago de Chile.
Oh, I'm sorry. And now if you'll remove yourself from my bunk, I need some sleep.
If you are going to move in here, then what am I going to do?
Oh, you'll think of something. You made all your own plans so far. Oh, thank you.
But if my husband sees me, then he may think you brought me on board.
Well, in that case, I shall be forced to kill him in a duel. Good night.
You are going to sleep?
I hope to. Try the shrine of the Queen of Heaven. It's the last cabin in the stern. No one goes there but young Poe, and he'll have to be told about you anyway. Good night.
Even when you are rude to me, your mouth is so very sweet. Buenas noches.
Well, woman or no woman aboard, it was too late to turn back now. And so 2 days later, we dropped anchor at the mouth of Serif River. Off the port rail, a quarter-mile away, lay the pirate stockade. It was backed up by the dark green mass of jungle. And on the opposite side of the junk, across 100 yards or so of water, was the beach of Misfortune Isle, sloping back to break sharply on the foot of the limestone cliffs. On the upper shoulders of those cliffs were the caves with a fortune in edible bird's nests. And between the cliffs and the water stood the Upas tree. 100 legends were told about the Upas tree, how its shadow could kill a man, how the spirit of a white goddess was prisoned in the thick, dark foliage of its top, and how birds that lighted on its branches fell dead to the ground. Well, one thing at least was true enough. The Dyaks made a horrible poison from the juice of its bark, and they worshipped the tree. Young Paul took the renegade interpreter Jambu with him and went ashore to pay his respects to Cerise, and at the same time was to pass the word to his Chinese friends. It was late afternoon when he came back, and I'd become nearly as uneasy as Don Narciso. Young Po came aboard alone and motioned me to follow him below, saying nothing until we were alone in my cabin.
It is my humble opinion, Captain Howard, that heaven favors us with a decided lack of fortune.
Why? What happened?
Cerise, most polite. I, most polite. We enjoy most friendly conversation while we both held our knives beneath our robes. All very polite.
Well, did you get word to your men?
Cerise blessed with presence of 200 Dyaks and 50 Malays. My own brethren are unfortunately down the coast for 2 days.
Oh, that's a bad piece of luck.
But I have news of much worse one. Jambu, that son of 10,000 devils, has deserted us.
Deserted us?
He has joined Cerise.
Oh, he'll tell him exactly what we're planning.
Do not believe Jambu would do such a thing.
Delphina, I told you to stay out of this cabin.
Jambu worships me. He is my slave wife. It was he who helped me sleep on board.
Oh, so that's why he's done it.
He has not deserted. What could he hope to gain by it?
You, probably.
This unworthy one offers suggestion that we stand out to sea until water which come tomorrow.
A fine idea, except for one thing. Your sleepy little sons of heaven left the cable slack. We're grounded on a mud bar with no chance of moving before the tide tomorrow morning. We'll have to stand and fight.
Yes, they are so careless. I forgot to tell you, they even neglected to cover powder during storm. The water ruined it.
Well, then we'll not even have the 4 cannon.
Really matter of slight importance. They only ornaments. They would blow up if we fired them.
You could hardly have picked a more suitable time to tell me. Well, we'll fight without them.
The impetuosity of youth. I think I sleep for a while and dream of maidens on the moon.
Young Po, you'll stay on your feet and start your men boiling kettles of oil and piling rocks by the rail.
It would be so much pleasanter to die in one sleep.
If I know Sir, if he'll not attack until nearly midnight. Delphina, can you swim?
I can do anything.
Primarily, I want to know if you can swim.
I can.
Good. Young Po, I'll be back and help you in an hour, but I have a job to do first. Come along, Condesa. It was dark when we slipped into the water and struck out for the island. If I had tried to lower a boat, they might have seen us from the shore. I could see no other way to keep her out of it. The rest of us had no chance. I knew how the Dyaks fought. We could expect no help. And on board, she would have been the only one of us left alive. Aye, Jambu would see to that. We made the beach safely, crossed it, and worked our way up the steep path on the face of the cliff. Finally, we reached the ledge in front of the cave.
Oh, it is so dark here. It frightens me.
Well, there's nothing to harm you. Bats in the caves, perhaps, but nothing else.
I am to stay here alone, then?
Aye, until the water witch comes into anchor tomorrow. Light this torch, then, and signal them. They'll come ashore and take you off.
Tomorrow? Where will you be tomorrow, Arik? You are going back there to die with him, aren't you?
We'll have a fighting chance.
You have no chance at all. You know it. Don't go. Stay with me, Arik.
You know that's impossible.
No, this man, young Po, is no better than a pirate himself, and you cannot help him by losing your own life or stay with me.
And what of your husband?
Do not go back. I beg you. Please, Arik.
Delphina, you have a deadlier poison than the Upas tree itself.
Will you force me then to stay here in safety and watch you die on those decks there below us?
Would it make so very much difference to you?
So much that I would not care to be alive tomorrow. In Manila, I hated my life. I prayed for earthquakes, pirates, death, anything. But now I pray only that you may live through this night.
Delphina. There's nothing can be said.
Leave me if you must. But before you do, kiss me.
Delphina.
When as much as precioso. Adiosito.
Adiosito. For a little while. Had I stayed there one moment longer, I should never have left her. Back aboard the junk, I found young Poe rushing preparations for the hopeless fight that stood ahead of us. Don Narciso was shivering on the quarterdeck, and I saw no reason to tell him his wife had made the trip with us. The Chinese crew had piled stones and smoke pots at the rail, ready to throw down on the heads of the Dyaks who would try to board us, and kettles of oil were being heated over a brick hearth by the mast. Paper lanterns had been lighted and hung about the rigging, but outside the narrow limits of the deck we could see nothing. Nothing but the black wall of the Borneo night. That same dark wall shut off any sight of the Upas tree and of the cliff face where Delphina lay hidden. But I knew from the ledge she could see us moving about on the lighted deck. I loaded my pistols with the only dry powder aboard, and we waited. There was no light on shore and no sound. And 3 hours went past.
Signore, have what possible measures been taken? My venerable Captain General, I have offered incense and rice to Queen of Heaven. If our enemies prevail after that, then we have mistreated them in some former life. I go below to sleep. Sleep? And who is to give orders to your men? They give them to one another, Excellency. They are all commanders in their own right. We may perhaps meet later in third or fourth heaven. With the powder, trigger aboard, and the ground and the ship.
I might warn you before the attack starts, Your Excellency. Stay away from the rail, at least until after the smoke pots are thrown.
Oh?
The Dyaks use bamboo poles with iron hooks on the end, and well, they can reach up and drag a man over the rail easier than picking coconuts.
Capital Arat. Perhaps we could surrender. Make peace somehow.
They'll take no surrender. They want our heads.
Look!
They're on us.
Young Paul! Jack, here they come!
Watch the rails, Your Excellency. Use your cutlass if a head comes over the side, and look out for the hook. Terrific Dyak warriors had run their boats in against the sides of the junk, and now were pushing their murderous hooks over the rail. The Chinese crew was fighting like madmen, tossing over smoke pots, smashing those heavy rocks down on the heads of the pirate mob, pouring out smoking kettles of boiling oil. And the whole curtain of night was torn by the screams of agony.
Captain Arat, we find ourselves suddenly without smoke pots or soothing oil, and rocks are nearly gone.
They'll be swarming aboard us in another 2 minutes. Where's the Captain General?
He has retired to cabin. It would be uncharitable to say he hides there.
Well, a lot of good it'll do him. What happened? Young Poe. They're on the island. Look.
It would appear top of Sacred Upas tree has burst into flame.
The great flaming torch of the tree spread into full bloom and leaped up to the heavens, lighting the whole sea around us. And everywhere about us, screaming in hoarse terror, the Dyaks drew off in their boats and stared at the blazing death of their sacred tree. And then in full view on the glaring face of the cliff, the beautiful and weird figure of a woman, hair streaming behind it, swung slowly out from behind the flames, and up, and then disappeared over the ledge in front of the cave. And at the sight of their white goddess escaping from her prison in the tree, the Dyaks broke in panic and turned their boats and raced for the shore. And while I thought of the signal torch I'd left with Delphina, suddenly the battle was over.
10,000 bushels of unexpected good fortune. The little parakeet has saved our worthless lives.
All right, then you recognize her.
These venerable eyes have never looked upon sight more fair. I shall address her hereafter as Princess of Heaven. And I think perhaps another recognized her also.
Caramba, did you not see it? That was Delphina. It was my wife.
I know. She was aboard with us.
Aboard with us? By your permission, senor?
No, she stowed away and asked that the knowledge of her presence be kept from you.
I have no doubt she found you quite agreeable to such a plan.
Take care, Excellency.
Take care? I will see you hang, senor. And as for her, I shall whip her through the streets of Manila.
We will discuss that later.
I do not discuss my decisions. In fact, it may be better that I bring her aboard at once. Perhaps beat her to death on this very deck. You pardon me.
It is my humble opinion that elderly men should learn to control their emotions.
Wait. There's a Dayak warrior hiding there by the rail.
The boats have gone and left him.
Excellency! Excellency, away from that rail!
I take no orders from you, senor.
Get back! Look out!
Silence! Soldiers!
Wait, Captain!
Very commendable shooting, Captain Arad.
Hi, but a little used to the Captain General, I'm afraid. See what you can do from young Po. I'm going ashore to look after her.
See what I can do for him. Now, how can I be expected to replace man's head on his body, especially when head seems to have rolled overboard?
There's not the least bit of use in giving me a poet's blind, you old reprobate. It was nothing but pure luck that kept me from sailing in here this morning and finding nothing but your heads all a-smoking in a row.
Life moves only according to dreams of Queen of Heaven, Mr. O'Kane. Not to mention, of course, those of Princess.
Oh, that Spanish lass, eh? And quite a one she's turned out to be.
I plan to devote the remainder of my unworthy life to rescue of small birds from nets.
Now, that's a silly way for a grown man to spend his time. Oh, come in, Arad. I've been wondering where to find you.
I was charting the course.
Well, we can sail in the morning. Both ships are nearly loaded.
Good. We'll head for Canton. Young Po, this friend of yours there, this Hong Qua, do you think he might have some good quality of silk to trade?
It is possible.
Silk is it now? And what will you be wanting silk for, Arad?
Well, it's not silk. I mean, not exactly.
Come, man. It's what? It's not silk, Arad, then what is it, huh?
Oh, all right, Michael, if you have to know everything. I want to trade with him for a dozen pair of silk stockings.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Misfortune's Isle by Richard Matthews Hallett, adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Paul Frees as Captain Arad, Virginia Gregg as Doña Delfina, Bill Conrad as Young Po, Barry Croker as Don Narciso, and Tony Barrett as Mike O'Kane. Next week,
when you're tired out from doing nothing all weekend, when Blue Monday stares you in the face, next week at this time when your problems seem just too much for you, we offer you Escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story by one of the world's great authors. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.